Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12:30 here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. My name is Jane Monreal. Nick Sturdivant joining you later tonight. Let's start your Monday afternoon with some weather. It is the first day of fall here in a couple of hours, but we are feeling like it's going to be a cool one later on. We'll get to your weather check, but first, NASA unveiling its 2025 class of astronaut candidates. This is the class of 2025 out of Houston. Let's go ahead and listen in live on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
We debut NASA's 2025 class of astronaut candidates. We are honored to have some special guests with us today. Please join me in welcoming Senator Ted Cruz, Congressman Brian Babin, and Congressman Jake Elzy. We'd also like to recognize the offices of Representatives Randy Weber and Dan Crenshaw, and Texas Representative Dr. Greg Bonin. And we also have a representative from Senator John Cornyn's office. Additionally, we have some NASA guests, senior leadership that are here today that are not on the program. So I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Casey Swells, our Deputy Associate Administrator, Brian Hughes, NASA Chief of Staff, Ken Bowersox, our Associate Administrator for Space Operations Mission Directorate, Lori Glaze, our Acting Associate Administrator for our Exploration Systems Development Mission Directorate, and she's also serving as our Moon to Mars Program Manager. And from Marshall Space Flight Center, we have Director Joseph Pelfrey and Stennis Space Center Director John Bailey. Today is a very exciting day for all of us here, for our nation, and for all humanity, as we will announce the newest class of astronaut candidates. 10 American men and women will begin their basic training that spans 2 years to eventually earn their wings and join NASA's active astronaut corps.
That 2-year journey begins today. The next 2 years will be spent studying and training in our world-class facilities. They will learn NASA's history and our vision for the future. They will take classes in geology, land and water survival, and space health. They will even get to train in our high-performance jets. They will engage in a variety of technical activities to prepare them for the missions that will help NASA push the boundaries of exploration, travel to new destinations in the solar system, and inspire the world through discovery. We look forward to supporting them and their families along the way.
That's right. The Johnson Space Center is proud to be home to America's Astronaut Corps. But we are also proud to lead several key programs and organizations for NASA. We lead the management and operations of the International Space Station while supporting several companies as they design and develop commercial LEO low Earth orbit destinations. And through the Commercial Crew Program, we partner with industry to develop and operate a new generation of spacecraft and launch systems. Artemis flight planning and operations are also conducted here. And the Johnson-based Gateway and Extravehicular Activity and Human Surface Mobility programs are working with industry to develop a lunar outpost, the next generation of spacesuits, and lunar rovers. In addition to these significant human spaceflight programs, Johnson implements for the agency commercial lunar payload services, an instrumental part of Artemis, through partnerships with industry to provide robotic capabilities for the Moon and Mars.
All of these efforts are positioning us for our next giant leap, one that ushers in a new golden age of innovation and exploration.
astronaut candidates we announced today will help us get there. They were selected from a pool of about 8,000 applicants because they represent America's finest. I would like to thank the team of NASA employees who helped with the selection process. Human spaceflight is a team sport, and it requires the passion and dedication of all of us. Now that you've heard a little bit about the home of spaceflight, and it's now time to announce our newest astronaut candidates. And to help us kick that off, please give a warm Houston welcome to our Flight Operations Director, Norm Knight.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Steve. And good morning. 4 years ago, we named 10 exceptional individuals in our most recent class of astronaut candidates. I often look back at what we've accomplished over these last 4 years in human spaceflight, and those accomplishments have been significant. Much of what's been achieved has been made possible by the International Space Station, where many of these candidates sitting here today will have the opportunity to visit. Every lesson learned aboard station has paved the way for where we're headed next, to the moon, this time to stay, and on to Mars. Just think, 4 crew members who are preparing to fly around the moon early next year, farther away from Earth than any human since Apollo 13 in 1970. They were also once astronaut candidates. Today, 10 more distinguished individuals are joining the NASA family as the newest generation of explorers to further our reach into the golden age of innovation and exploration. This selection was challenging, competitive, and very difficult. But what we have for you here today is a group of individuals who are not only exceptional, but who will be inspirational for the United States of America and for our planet. For those of us in flight operations, the astronaut candidates we're naming today may be the most visible representatives of human spaceflight, but they are also the emissaries to an entire cadre of talented flight controllers, trainers, engineers, and frankly, everyone across this great agency who are the heartbeat of human spaceflight. With that, I'd like to invite my deputy, Chell Lindgren, to join me in introducing the 2025 class of astronaut candidates to the world. Chell.
Thank you, Norm. It is an honor to be out here today. Now, I come to you from the 20th astronaut group, the Chumps, and we can't wait to see what the flies name this new class. Now, the 10 individuals you're about to meet come with fantastic experience to lead us here on Earth and in space. Are you ready to meet the 24th group of astronaut candidates? All right, let's get started. He's a Chief Warrant Officer and Experimental Test Pilot in the United States Army. From Charlottesville, Virginia, Ben Bailey.
She's a geologist who worked on the Curiosity Mars rover and Artemis III science team. Originally from Sammamish, Washington, Lauren Edgar.
He's a test pilot and a major in the United States Air Force. From Leesburg, Virginia, Adam Furman.
He's a test pilot and weapons officer in the United States Air Force. From Savannah, Illinois, Major Cameron Jones.
He's a launch director and engineering executive from Columbus, Indiana, Yuri Kubo.
She's a former United Airlines test pilot, NOAA hurricane hunter, and naval aviator. From Little Elm, Texas, Rebecca Lawler.
She flew to space as a SpaceX engineer on the Polaris Dawn mission and is a native to Houston, Texas. Please welcome Anna Menon.
She's an anesthesiologist from Cupang Falls, New York, Imelda Muller.
She's a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy and a test pilot in the F-18 Super Hornet. From Goshen, Kentucky, Erin Overcash.
She's a former flight test engineering director at Gulfstream Aerospace and United States Marine Corps test pilot. From San Diego, California, Catherine Spees.
These 10 men and women are your 24th astronaut candidate class. We can't wait to see what you achieve. Congratulations, and please join me in giving them another round of applause.
Wow. At NASA, we are more than just a team. We are a family. To share some words of wisdom with you, we have 3 astronauts here with us today who sat in this very stage some years ago and received their astronaut pins. Please welcome NASA astronauts Chris Birch, Nicole Ayers, and Chris Williams.
Lauren, Yuri, Becky, Adam, Cameron, Erin, Kate, Ben, Mel, and Anna. Congratulations and welcome to the team. My name is Chris Birch, and I am a member of the 2021 NASA astronaut class. I'm here with 2 of my fly classmates, so this is officially a swarm. Your astronaut class is a very special group. That's why there's a tradition among astronauts that the newest astronaut class is named by the class before it. Our class was named by the turtles, who lovingly gave us the name the Flies because, among more humorous reasons, they hoped we would fly early, and indeed we have. Nicole just returned from her 5-month mission aboard the International Space Station, and Chris is preparing to launch for his 8-month mission this November. The bonds formed with your class are very special. Astronaut training is an apprenticeship. We learn from our trainers and our instructors, and we are constantly learning from each other. Your training builds a foundation of trust that will carry you throughout your career and on to your future missions. On behalf of all the Flies, we look forward to getting to know your class so we can give you a name befitting your personalities and appropriate for the exciting and dynamic time that we are in human spaceflight.
As Chris mentioned, your next few years are going to be all about learning and training. In many ways, it's like drinking from a fire hose. You'll be asked to learn, not just learn, but to master new skills and disciplines. Some of these might be familiar to some members of your class, like flying an aircraft or characterizing crystals in a rock. But others are going to be totally new to you. I know for me in my class, it was an incredible experience the first time we were underwater in a spacesuit under 40 feet of water in our neutral buoyancy lab practicing a spacewalk to repair a space station. That was totally new and just an awesome experience. Thankfully, you're going to have some of the most talented and passionate instructors and an incredibly dedicated team here at NASA who are going to help you through this. We could not do what we do without the amazing support that we have here at the Johnson Space Center and from the entire NASA community. But some of the most special moments will come as you find how much you get to learn from each other, from your classmates, your peers. It's really a rare opportunity to be surrounded by a group of individuals that all come from different backgrounds, different fields, and with different experiences, but who are at the highest levels of their professions. When I have a question about the nuances of flying a T-38 information, I can turn to my fighter pilot classmate with thousands of flight hours and ask her a question. When I'm wondering about the design of a biology experiment on the ISS that we're learning about, I can turn to my bioengineering classmate and ask, why is this experiment designed the way it is so I can understand how it works? The knowledge and experiences that you all bring and share with each other will not only make you a stronger class, but make us a stronger astronaut corps. It also makes it an absolute pleasure to come to work every single day. Learning is not unique to your initial training. It's going to continue after you graduate and go into supporting other crew members who are flying in space, helping to develop the systems that are going to take us to the moon and beyond, and training to be a crew member on a future mission. I can personally vouch for this. Training for my upcoming mission has been a constant learning process, but it builds on the foundational skills that I learned in the initial training that you all are about to embark upon. And we've seen how it sets you up to excel. My classmate Nicole just returned from a fantastically successful 5-month mission to the International Space Station.
Thanks, C-Dub. Well said. You know, we all look back fondly on our time in those seats, being welcomed into this NASA family. The next 2 years will be a whirlwind, but they'll be some of the best moments with the best people. As NASA furthers human spaceflight, we can't wait to see you all get assigned to a crew and get welcomed into a smaller family that is that crew. Whether on a space station crew or a crew that's headed to the moon and eventually onto Mars, we build bonds that span generations and borders. We're so excited to see you all eating a family dinner with your crew somewhere on potentially an exploration vehicle or even a habitat somewhere. I know I personally loved our family dinners on the International Space Station. But before we go, we have some very special guests who couldn't be here today, my space brothers and sister, and the family I got to share some amazing moments with. They're currently living and working aboard the International Space Station 260 miles above the Earth. And they're also cheering you on. And they prepared a special message for you guys. So please join me in welcoming NASA astronauts Johnny Kim, Zena Cardman, Mike Fink, and JAXA astronaut Kim Agui.
Hello from the International Space Station, orbiting 250 miles above beautiful planet Earth. I'm NASA astronaut Mike Fink, a proud member of the class of 1996 Sardines, and we wanted to offer a huge congratulations to the 2025 NASA astronaut candidates. That's you.
We wish we could be there in person to welcome you, but we're so grateful to be up here. We're nearing 25 years of continuous human occupancy aboard the space station, and the work we do will prepare us for missions beyond low Earth orbit. You're joining NASA at an exciting time. We're in a new era of space exploration, going to the moon and on to Mars. We can't wait to see where your journey takes you.
We're a close-knit group in the astronaut office, and we're thrilled to welcome you into the fold. You can always count on us for support, but you should also lean on each other as a class too. The people sitting beside you right now will become more than colleagues. They'll become lifelong friends.
We can't wait to meet you when my crewmates and I are back on the ground. Until then, learn everything you can, get to know each other, and most importantly, enjoy the ride. We'll keep the space station in great shape for when you get here.
Thank you, Johnny, Zena, Mike, and Kimia. And we can't wait to welcome you back home soon. Next, I'd like to introduce NASA Acting Administrator Secretary Sean Duffy. Administrator Duffy stepped into this role a little over 2 months ago and has already demonstrated his commitment to leading our agency forward with vision and purpose. He also serves as the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation. Please help me welcome NASA's Acting Administrator, Secretary Sean Duffy.
Well, it is great to be with all of you today and to join the chorus of congratulations to our new class of astronauts. Well done, everybody. Listen, we know that you represent your families, you represent your communities, you represent NASA, which is the most respected and revered agency in the whole wide world. No pressure. But most importantly, you represent America, the greatest, most innovative, creative country that's ever existed on the face of the earth. And so we couldn't be prouder to welcome you and congratulate you on your work to get to this moment. Now, it's been mentioned before that over 8,000 people applied to get one of these 10 spots. And they were pilots, they were scientists, engineers, they were dreamers, and they were hoping to be here today. But we picked the best and the brightest, the most skilled, the best looking, the best personalities to take these 10 spots. And again, you represent your country. And I know the President extends his congratulations as I extend mine as well to you. And oftentimes we talk about the American dream. And if you think about the American dream, I think that there's nothing that embodies the American dream more than the 10 of you today having these spots. I know it was hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of studying, a lot of training for you to win these spots at NASA, but you truly today are living the American dream, and again, congratulations for that. You are America's best and brightest. And we're going to need America's best and brightest because we have bold exploration plans for the future. As we've talked about, we are going back to the moon. This time we're going to stay. And from what we learn on our mission to the moon, we're going to go to Mars. And we're going to go beyond into the unknown. Now, some are challenging our leadership in space, say like the Chinese. And I'll just tell you this, I'll be damned if the Chinese beat NASA or beat America back to the moon. We are going to win. We love challenges. We love competition. And we are going to win the second space race back to the moon with all of you participating in that great effort. We also talked about the golden age of transportation and the golden age of exploration. And again, our future is bright. We have bold missions ahead of us. It's going to take money, it's going to take grit, it's going to take courage to actually meet this moment with these missions, with this vision. And I know all of you have the heart to do that. What I find most exciting is I know you guys, they've been NASA employees for a week, I think, 7 days, and I got to meet them earlier today. What I found interesting as I met our new cast of astronauts is that one of these 10 could actually be one of the first Americans to put their boots on the Mars surface, which is very, very cool. Again, no pressure, NASA. We have some work to do. So at this moment in time, I couldn't be more honored to be the acting administrator and to lead this organization at this moment in time as we make our vision clear, our mission clear as we move forward. And I do have now the honor and privilege of introducing our next speaker, who, by the way, is also very handsome. He's also very smart, but he is also one of the great leaders in the U.S. Senate. He is a champion for NASA. He's a champion for the Johnson Space Center, which you're very lucky to have him. But not only that, he authorizes the money that gets through the Congress to come and fund NASA. So he's really, really important because he writes the checks, actually. Help me give a warm welcome to one of Texas's finest, Chairman Ted Cruz.
Well, thank you very much, Sean. Let me say you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you for your hard work. You're Secretary of Transportation. You're the acting administrator of NASA. I think you're trying to compete with Marco Rubio to see who can have the most jobs. And I look forward to seeing you named as the Archbishop of Washington, D.C. I think you could do that job. An excellent job as well. Let me say at the outset, I am really, really glad in the United States Senate that an incoming class is not named by your predecessors. That just would not work out well, so y'all are brave. And I assume you want to be really nice to your preceding class so that they don't give you some terrible name. Speaking of terrible names, actually, I have a call on you, Mr. Administrator, Mr. Secretary, for some strong executive leadership, which is the name of this event is ASCAN. Now, I recognize that these guys are capable of pulling out a can of whoop-ass. But I would humbly suggest next time maybe we go with a different name than ASCAN. Like the collective branding can come up with something suitable to the occasion. I want to say to each of you, you guys are amazing. You're the best and the brightest. You are incredibly educated. You're incredibly fearless. You're willing, like sardines, to get in a tiny can and sit up on top of an exploding rocket going up into the sky. And I'll tell you, little boys and little girls, they look at you and they dream of doing what y'all are doing. That's powerful. That is the future. You know, Mr. Secretary, you're in my hometown of Houston. And Houston has a long and deep connection to space. One of the very first words uttered on the surface of the moon was Houston. Houston, the eagle has landed. There is a reason our baseball team is the Astros. By the way, they have all committed. They are all now Astros fans. And there's a reason our basketball team is the Rockets. And the Rockets are winning it all this year. That's my prediction right now. There's also a reason that when JFK was president, that he came to Houston, to Rice Stadium, and he announced the commitment that we would go to the moon within a decade. And JFK explained why we were going to the moon. And he said, we're going to the moon for the same reason that Rice plays the University of Texas. We do not do so because it is easy, but because it is hard. So that's what y'all are here to do, is to do what is hard. And I will say, on the 4th of July, the President signed into law the One Big Beautiful Bill that included, among other things, $10 billion directly for NASA. I was proud to have added that $10 billion. And that funding is there because we will go back to the moon. We will beat the Chinese to the moon. We will have a sustained human habitation on the moon or in cislunar space. We will continue to beat the Chinese in low Earth orbit. And with all of the learning from going to the moon, from Gateway, from the ISS, we will go to Mars, and the first boot that ever sets foot on the surface of the red planet will be an American astronaut, and could well be one of these boots right here. And I have to, as a girl dad, with 2 teenage girls aged 14 and 17, I'm particularly proud of all the women here and the fact that with Artemis, America is going to put the first woman on the surface of the moon in the history of mankind. That is powerful, that is beautiful, and to everyone here who is so integral to JSC and to the space mission and commercial space and to the mission of American leadership in space, I want to tell all of you how incredibly proud I am of you, and to put very simply, my job is to have your back, and you have my word, I will continue to do so each and every day. With that, I want to welcome my dear friend, Congressman Brian Babin. Congressman Babin has been in Congress since 2015. He is the chairman of the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. He's been a dentist for 35 years, so if you piss him off, he'll rip your teeth out. But don't worry, he can give you the happy gas. You won't feel it at all. And he was also in the Air Force from 1975 to 1979, so if he's honest, he really is jealous that he's not in a blue jumpsuit sitting up here as well. But he gets to be in Congress, and he is a champion for JSC, he's a champion for space, and he's a good friend. Congressman Brian Babin.
Thank you, Ted. It's always tough to follow Ted Cruz. There's no way, with my old East Texas twang, there's no way I'm quite as articulate. But I just want to say how pleased I am to be here to meet every one of you young folks that are going to be stepping your feet on the lunar surface, the ISS, and maybe the red planet as well. It's more exciting than I can even gather. Well, good morning. Great to be here with everyone. What an incredible privilege it is to be here to welcome this new class on this exciting day. of astronauts. Unbelievable. Today's announcement concludes a rigorous selection process that began more than a year ago with thousands, literally. These people were chosen from a cast of many thousands of people, of individuals, applying to join the ranks of our esteemed astronaut corps. And I want to thank every astronaut in here and former astronauts as well for your service. Space exploration has always stirred something deep within the soul of the American people. It is impossible not to be inspired by those who devote their lives to it. And I just want to say congratulations to each and every one of you. Each of you embodies the qualities that have defined NASA astronauts for more than 60 years. Think about that, 60 years. Courage, ingenuity, curiosity, and so much more are the virtues that you have. This class of astronauts will help lead the next chapter of human spaceflight. Some of you, has already been stated, will have missions on the moon. Some of you may take humanity's first steps on the red planet of Mars. All of you will carry forward missions that today exist only in our dreams. But together, we're going to make these dreams a reality. For generations, American astronauts have been a source of national pride for our country. You will now take up that mantle, carrying our flag proudly and fearlessly into space. But your mission is larger than exploration alone. At a time of growing global competition, NASA's work is more important than ever. It is national security, folks. We must be on that lunar surface first. We must remain a presence of America in low Earth orbit. This is important. We cannot fail there. We also have to hope and that the stars will guide us into all the endeavors that we are dreaming about. There's much work ahead, but the challenges will shape you, will strengthen you, and will embolden you. As a representative for Johnson Space Center, I'm so very proud that many of you will soon call Houston home and join this community that has long been the very center of America's space legacy. So please know that we believe in you, we are counting on you, and we are praying for you and for your great success. May God bless you all, and may God bless our space program. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Senator Cruz and Congressman Babin. We truly value all the support you give to NASA's efforts, and we value you as being our elected officials. And a huge thank you to Secretary Duffy. Now, I'd like to invite Chief Astronaut Joe Acaba and Deputy Chief Astronaut Nicole Mann to help us get to know the class. Joe and Nicole are responsible for managing astronaut resources and operations. They help develop astronaut flight crew operation concepts and make recommendations for crew assignments for future spaceflight missions, including astronauts to be assigned to fly on Artemis. Welcome, Joe and Nicole.
All right, thank you, Vanessa, and welcome to our newest astronaut candidates. I hope you are ready for the wild ride that is coming. We asked a lot of tough questions of you during the interviews. Now's a chance for you to relax and share a little bit about yourself as individuals.
All right, now for some of you, this is not your first introduction to NASA, and we are excited to have you back. So Lauren, Yuri, and Becky, tell us about your previous experiences here at NASA and what your job was at the time of selection.
All right, well, I'm happy to kick things things off, I'm Lauren Edgar, and I am so excited and honored to be here today. My NASA experience actually dates back to my days as a NASA intern working at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. I spent 2 summers there, and then I participated in a number of NASA programs throughout college and grad school. More recently, I've been working at the U.S. Geological Survey and helping to contribute to the exploration of the Moon and Mars. So I've participated in NASA missions, I've contributed to some of the geology training and testing, I've worked on the Mars Exploration Rover mission, Curiosity Mars Rover mission working with JPL, and most recently the Artemis 3 science team. And through these experiences, I've had the chance to see the amazing team that makes this all possible. And I just want to say I am so excited to be officially part of the NASA family and can't wait to be serving in this role along with all of my new classmates here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yuri Kubo. Super excited to be here and deeply honored to be a part of this class as well as the NASA family. Actually, much like Lauren, I started here back in college. I was a co-op right here at the Johnson Space Center, actually. Feels a lot like a kind of a homecoming, a really nice homecoming to come back. So I spent 7 tours here at Johnson Space.
All right, we are going to leave the NASA astronaut class because, as you saw there in the corner of your screen, it looks like the White House briefing has now started with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. Let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
Embracing full transparency in government and championing gold standard science. Tonight, the President will depart to New York City ahead of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. He will be joined in New York City by the First Lady. Tomorrow morning, President Trump will deliver a major speech touting the renewal of American strength around the world, his historic accomplishments in just 8 months, including the ending of 7 global wars and conflicts. The President will also touch upon how globalist institutions have significantly decayed the world order, and he will articulate his straightforward and constructive vision for the world. The President will also be hosting bilateral meetings with the UN Secretary General and the leaders of Ukraine, Argentina, and the European Union. The President will also later in the day hold a multilateral meeting with Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, the UAE, and Jordan. After these important meetings, the President will attend a reception tomorrow night with more than 100 world leaders before returning to Washington, D.C. On Thursday here at the White House, President Trump will welcome President Erdogan of Turkey for a bilateral meeting. And on Friday, the President will travel to Long Island for the Ryder Cup golf match between the United States and Europe. This event is one of the greatest sporting events in the world, and it would not be taking place this year without President Trump's help. President Trump signed an executive order last week preventing a strike that would have crippled the New York City area ahead of the tournament, and at the request of the 5 labor unions who all represent workers on the Long Island Railroad. One of the greatest golfers in the world, Bryson DeChambeau, praised the president's critical intervention, saying, quote, "When the possibility of a strike threatened to disrupt transportation and attendance, President Trump stepped up and took the action needed to protect this world-class competition. Thanks to President Trump's decisive leadership, the Ryder Cup experience will be everything fans and the golf community deserve." Again, that's a quote from the great golfer Bryson DeChambeau. Now let's all hope the American Ryder Cup team can take home the trophy. In other news, positive economic data continues to pour in. Brand new polling shows that Americans' faith in the economy and the direction of the nation is back on track and shooting even higher. Home ownership is more affordable, with mortgage rates dropping to a 3-year low. For new home buyers, this represents a $250 decline in your monthly mortgage payment, or nearly $3,000 a year. And President Trump has made it very clear he wants to continue to see mortgage rates decline to a record low, just like they did in his first term. Thanks to President Trump's unleashing energy dominance, gas prices are dropping and Americans are spending the smallest share of their disposable income on gasoline since 2005. Additionally, the annual cost to own and operate a new vehicle is down by nearly 6% over the last year. Americans are earning more and they are spending more than ever before. After inflation outpaced for 26 straight months under Joe Biden, real wages have increased nearly every month since President Trump took office, with wages for blue-collar workers rising at the fastest rate in 6 decades. Retail sales are also booming, up 5% over last year, and the stock market is booming, and Americans' retirement accounts continue to do well, with the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all hitting new record highs. In fact, the S&P 500 is up nearly 15%, and the NASDAQ is up more than 21% since Election Day. As part of President Trump's mission to restore America as the manufacturing superpower of the world, he has secured nearly $9 trillion in U.S. investment, nearly 9 times more than Biden attracted in his entire 4-year term, and we expect that number to be upwards of $15 trillion very soon. We're already seeing the initial economic benefits of these investments, with industrial production recently rising to an all-time high. President Trump built the greatest economy in the history of the world in his first term, and we are witnessing him do it all over again. Now, before I open it up to questions, I do want to speak on the heinous political assassination of Charlie Kirk. As President Trump powerfully stated yesterday, this assassination was an attack on everything that makes the United States of America the greatest country on earth. But that attack has completely failed. The heartwarming response from the overwhelming majority of the American people over the past 2 weeks is all of the proof that you need. The assassin who took Charlie's life can destroy flesh and blood, but he can never destroy the values that Charlie stood for. All across the country, millions of Americans have prayed, hosted vigils, attended church services, became politically engaged for the first time, and honored the legacy of Charlie and the ideals he died speaking for. The beautiful memorial service attended by President Trump and 100,000 great Americans in State Farm Stadium yesterday was just the latest example. And Erica Kirk's mercy was one of the greatest acts of grace this world has ever seen. May God continue to watch over Erica and their beautiful children. Unfortunately, there have been some jarring exceptions to this unity. This past Friday, 58 House Democrats voted no, and 38 voted present on a resolution that simply stated, condemning in the strongest possible terms the assassination of Charles James Kirk and all forms of political violence. There were no strings attached to this vote. This was a simple gesture of human decency to denounce political violence. I wish I could say that this was only a fringe group, but 96 votes is nearly half of the entire House Democrat caucus. And they didn't just vote against this basic resolution condemning political violence. A number of those same Democrats took to the House floor to smear Charlie Kirk's name. The man wasn't even buried yet, and Democrat members of Congress were denigrating his memory on the floor of the House of Representatives. This was truly a sad moment and a clear reflection of how radical the Democrat Party has become. Many Democrats in elective office have now been totally captured by a radical fringe of the far-left base who want to dehumanize every person they disagree with. We must continue to call this wickedness out. It's the only way that our nation can heal. For too long, past leaders have offered platitudes while political violence has been allowed to fester and harm innocent Americans. There has been coordinated campaigns dating back years, spearheaded by radical left-wing organizations centered on dehumanizing, intimidating, doxing, and even attacking Americans whom they disagree with. These groups have radicalized impressionable individuals to foment violence. An attempted transgender assassin traveled to Justice Brett Kavanaugh's family home with plans to end his life. An attempted assassin came within an inch of ending President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, and on the campaign trail, another attempted assassin tried to kill the president at his golf club in Florida. A left-wing assassin shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson right in the back in the heart of New York City. ICE agents are facing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults for simply doing their jobs. Violent radical left-wing mobs engaged in illegal behavior, targeted Jewish Americans, and shut down America's college campuses under the previous administration. Left-wing mobs burned down Tesla dealerships out of, quote, protest of Elon Musk and his policies. In May, a left-wing activist shouting "Free Palestine" murdered 2 innocent Israeli embassy staffers outside of the D.C. Jewish Museum here in Washington. These are just a few examples, prominent examples, of the growing left-wing political violence in our country. Enough is enough, and as President Trump has promised, he will directly address the dark sources funding and supporting this domestic terrorism to finally restore order in our country. The American people can expect further, very strong action on this very soon. Everyone, Republican, Democrat, everyone in between, we all deserve to live in a country where we do not have to fear for our lives simply for stating what we believe in. With that, I will take your question. In today's new media seat, we have Monica Page, who is the White House correspondent for Turning Point USA's news organization, on the front lines. Monica, thank you for being here. We're so sorry for the loss of Charlie. I know you work for him, you were very close to him, and we appreciate your being in the new media seat and also your commitment to covering the White House. You are here every day, just like the rest of everyone in this room. So why don't you kick us off today?
Thank you so much, Caroline. I don't think you realize how much it means to me to be here in this seat, especially on behalf of Turning Point USA and Frontlines. We greatly appreciate it. We also greatly appreciate the outpouring of support and just the really kind words that we heard yesterday at the memorial service. That means more to us than I don't think anybody ever knows. And even the global support that we're seeing for Charlie has been overwhelming, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much. I have 3 questions, if I may, on the horrific murder of Charlie Kirk. Government and local officials said that Antifa inscriptions were engraved in these bullet casings that killed Charlie Kirk. It appears to be a trend, especially after what we saw in the Annunciation Church shooting, Catholic Church shooting. Additionally, Stephen Miller recently commented on the rise in this kind of violence, saying there is a domestic terrorist movement growing in this country. The president is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. I'm wondering, what is the approach to holding these people accountable, just to ensure that violence like this just is eradicated moving forward?
Sure. Well, Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon. And this is something the president campaigned on, because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore. Not only, as you mentioned, were the bullet casings subscribed with Antifa mottos, if you will, in the heinous assassination of Charlie, but there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa. I will just read a few. In July 2025, several members of an Antifa cell ambushed and opened fire on officers at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, shooting 1 officer in the neck. Also in July 2025, 3 Antifa members were charged with assaulting a police officer during a violent riot outside an ICE facility in Portland, which for weeks prior had been under siege from the local Antifa terror cell. In February 2024, a transgender Antifa terrorist detonated an explosive device outside of the office of the Republican Attorney General of Alabama. In July 2023, Antifa members linked to abortionist group Jane's Revenge firebombed pro-life facilities and vandalized churches. In January 2022, a suspected Antifa member was arrested for bringing a pipe bomb to a pro-Trump event. In January 2021, an Antifa supporter threatened to shoot police officers and Trump supporters outside of the Florida State Capitol building. Again, I could continue to list many more examples for those in the room who don't believe this is a serious threat to American safety and our national security, but this administration knows that it is. That's why the president will be signing this order. And we will also be, most importantly, looking at who is funding Antifa and who is funding these other violent left-wing groups that we've seen perpetuate so much crime and mayhem across our country.
Thank you. And Charlie Kirk died exercising his First Amendment right, willingly debating, conversing with everybody and anybody. That was what he did. So what message does this White House have now to all Americans who feel like they are too afraid to express their beliefs, their values, their morals in the wake of such horrific violence?
I think the president has answered this, and I will leave it to his response, Monica, where he so beautifully said, we have to keep fighting. We have to keep speaking up. We have to keep speaking our mind. I know that's what Charlie would want us to do, and we have a right to free speech in this country. The president supports it. It is protected by our beautiful Constitution, and Americans should not cower in fear. They should rise up in courage to continue speaking the truth.
And to end on a lighter note, Caroline, sure. I'd love to know what your favorite memory of Charlie is.
Sure. Charlie was a great guy, and he was, of course, a very influential person in the conservative movement, in the MAGA movement. He was so helpful to the president during the campaign and to all of us who worked on that campaign, that historic campaign. I myself had many great memories going on Charlie's amazing podcast and his show. He was always willing to text people with words of encouragement. In fact, my last text exchange with him was the day before he died, and he was asking for my husband and I's address to send a children's book to our son. And I think that just speaks to the type of person that he was. And I know so many of us here at the White House are going to miss him very much.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Gabe.
Carolyn, thank you. Regarding the autism announcement,
Sure.
Why now? Does the administration have new data that hasn't been published previously showing a possible link between acetaminophen and autism?
I know there's been many reports about what this announcement at 4 o'clock will be, Gabe. The president is very excited about this, so I don't want to scoop the president of the United States and our Secretary of Health and Human Services, but what I can assure you is that Robert F. Kennedy and the incredible health team that this president has put together are really viewing things in a much different lens. And they are paying attention to studies and the gold standard of science and research that many in this city for far too long have turned a blind eye to. So I think Americans are going to be enlightened and proud of what they hear later this afternoon, but I won't get ahead of the president on exactly what that announcement entails.
On a different topic, going back to the president's social media post from over the weekend, regarding the DOJ and his seeming frustration that they hadn't taken action quickly enough. I want to point to something that the president said during his inaugural address. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. We will not allow that to happen. Is the president going back on his promise?
No. In fact, the president is fulfilling his promise to restore a Department of Justice that demands accountability. And it is not weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand accountability for those who weaponized the Department of Justice. And nobody knows what that looks like more than President Trump. We are not going to tolerate gaslighting from anyone in the media or from anyone on the other side who is trying to say that it's the president who is weaponizing the DOJ. It was Joe Biden and his attorney general who weaponized the DOJ. Joe Biden used this sacred American institution to go after his political opponent in the middle of an election year. And you look at people like Adam Schiff and like James Comey and like Letitia James, who the president is rightfully frustrated. He wants accountability for these corrupt fraudsters who abused their power, who abused their oath of office to target the former president and then candidate for the highest office in the land. And I think the president is reaffirmed in those frustrations and his hope for accountability by the millions and millions of people who reelected him to this office with a mandate to demand accountability. And the president has not been shy about this, Gabe. In fact, when he traveled to the Department of Justice earlier this year, all of you were there to cover it. He said, quote, "I demand a full and complete accountability for wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people gave a mandate to investigate and root the corruption out of our system," and that's what the president wants to see done.
Carolyn.
Ed.
On the autism issue again, there are reams of scientific research that suggests there's no clear link between autism and acetaminophen usage. You're suggesting today they may have new information on this. A lot of it, and this entire debate, has the potential to confuse women, especially pregnant women, about what to do. What do you say to those that say what you're doing today potentially just introduces more confusion into the debate.
I think women for many years, in fact for decades, Ed, have been confused by the rapid increase in autism in this country, in the childhood epidemic that is chronic epidemic, disease epidemic that is plaguing America's youth. Women are confused about that and they want answers to that. And that's exactly what this administration is focused on finding. And before you jump to conclusions based on reports that the White House has not even confirmed, I would encourage everyone in this room to go into the 4 o'clock announcement with some critical thinking skills and with some open ears to actually listen to what the president and his team of outsiders have to say about this. And there will be a number of things that will be announced and discussed. And I think, I know as a mother myself, I speak, I believe, for many mothers across the country who really want answers to what is happening to our nation's children. So again, I won't get ahead of the president, but I think everyone in this room needs to tone down the judgment before you even hear what people are going to say. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. So too on the Holman investigation, I mean, can you just speak to, did the president ask the Justice Department to close the case, and does Holman have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Holman never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Holman did absolutely nothing wrong, and even the President's Department of Justice, even Kash Patel's FBI, looked into this just to make sure. They had a number of different prosecutors and FBI agents who looked into this. They found zero evidence of illegal activity or criminal wrongdoing. And the White House and the President stand by Tom Homan 100% because he did absolutely nothing wrong, and he is a brave public servant who has done a phenomenal job in helping the President shut down the border. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions on far-left violence.
Sure.
The first one, the president said yesterday that the bullet hit Charlie, but it was aimed at every one of us. Do you and your colleagues have a heightened sense of fear following this shooting and this far-left violence we're seeing across the country?
I certainly think there's a heightened sense of awareness by conservatives across the country, by all of us here at the White House. Again, as I said to Monica, many of us were personal friends with Charlie and had involvement with Turning Point before we came and served our government in this way. So certainly it's a very shocking incident, and I think, you know, it's very unfortunate that those of us who work in this movement have to think about violence just for speaking our minds and for supporting President Trump.
And as a follow-up on that, I asked the president last night on Air Force One about this pattern of transgender violence we're seeing. You know, Charlie's killer lived with his boyfriend who identifies as transgender, and then we had the Annunciation shooting, the Covenant shooting, all of these incidents. The president said that we're looking into transgender violence. Does that mean the FBI is looking into it? And can you give any more clarity on how the administration is viewing this uptick in specifically transgender violence?
It's definitely something worth looking into, and I think anyone who denies that at this point is being willfully ignorant. And the administration is taking it seriously, all causes of violence, and why these people would be driven to such evil and such hatred. And there's probably many answers to that question, but the administration is really focused on all of them. For individual investigations and cases, of course, the FBI and the Department of Justice are leading those. But as for this overall violence and domestic terrorism that we're seeing, the White House and the President's policy team will be leading the charge, and that really begins with designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. And I can assure you there will be additional actions to come. Sure, in the pink.
Thanks, Caroline. Liz Landers with PBS NewsHour. I just wanted to follow up quickly on something that the president had said yesterday. So we heard from Erica Kirk. She said she forgives the man who shot and killed her husband. And then right after that, we heard from the president who said, I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them. How does that square with bringing down the temperature of political violence in this country? And then, if I could, I had a follow-up on Venezuela, too.
Look, the president is authentically himself. I think that's why millions of Americans across the country love him and support him, including Erica Kirk, who you saw so beautifully was on stage with the president in an unthinkable moment, in the midst of an unthinkable tragedy, and was leaning on the president for support during that time. And he was there to give it to her, as well as the vice president and many other top-ranking cabinet officials. Kayla.
Thanks, Caroline. On TikTok, the deal. How much is the deal? And if you can't give an exact number to how much the deal is, when can we expect to learn how much the deal is being valued at? And then separately, who are the members involved in the deal? Like, can you share any more details there?
So I don't have a specific number for you, nor am I going to confirm the specific individuals and entities in the deal, Kayla, but I do have several details I'm happy to run through for all of you, and the president will be signing the deal, the official deal, later this week at some point. Under the terms of this deal, TikTok will be owned by a majority of American investors and controlled by a board of directors with extensive national security and cybersecurity credentials. In partnership with the U.S. government, Oracle will serve as TikTok's trusted security provider, and they will independently monitor the safety and data security of all U.S. user data on TikTok's platform. Americans' data will be stored securely in the United States without access from China. All U.S. user data will be stored on servers operated by Oracle in the United States, protected from surveillance or interference by foreign adversaries. And the algorithm, I know this is a question many of you have had, will be secured, retrained, and operated in the United States outside of ByteDance's control. And TikTok will remain globally interoperable, meaning TikTok users in the U.S. will be able to see videos posted by users in other countries and vice versa. While I don't have a number on the specific deal, we do expect that thanks to the president's leadership and the securement of this historic deal, businesses using TikTok will generate as much as $178 billion in economic activity within the U.S. over the next 4 years. So this is great news, not just for the millions of American youth who use TikTok. Their data will be safe and secure with this new deal. They'll continue to use this very fun app, but it's also great news for all of the small business owners who have really been able to make a living off of the use of TikTok as well.
And if I could just get one more as it relates to China, on crop prices with farmers, as there's still no official trade deal with China, farmers are getting a little bit antsy navigating prices being weak and not strong. How is the administration thinking about farmers right now? Is there anything we can expect to see from the administration on sort of bailing farmers out should prices continue to not work in their favor?
Well, the administration is completely understands the anxiety of farmers. We're very much aware of this issue. It has been a part of our discussions, the trade team's discussions with their Chinese counterparts. As for any specific actions, I don't have any news on that for you today, but I can fully assure you the entire National Economic Council in this building, as well as our Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, have been talking with the trade team about this. There's been many meetings on this, and they are on the ball, but I don't have anything specific for you today. Sure, Selena.
Thanks, Caroline.
You've been listening live now to a White House briefing with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. We will get back to that here shortly. In the meantime, just wanted to bring you some breaking news. This is out of Cleveland, Ohio. You're looking at live now a large 3-alarm fire in Cleveland. This is according to city's fire department. It is in the city's old Brooklyn neighborhood, just posted from Cleveland Fire about 35 minutes ago. They are posting on social media right now. What they have released is that this is an industrial fire on Bradley that is a 3-alarm fire. So that means a large response, depending on the city agency. How many fire trucks does that include? It depends, but we can tell you that it's pretty sizable is what that means. So the 3-alarm fire here striking multiple buildings in this industrial area, and they will release updates as they are able to do so in Cleveland, Ohio. All right, so right now, let's go ahead and take a break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Time right now is 1:40. I'm Jane Monreal. I want to bring you an update now out of Cleveland, Ohio, on this breaking news situation with a 3-alarm fire. This is in the Cleveland's Old Brooklyn neighborhood, and it was just posted about 35 minutes ago, or that information released 35 minutes ago, with a very large industrial fire spreading to several buildings nearby. It doesn't look too bad right now, but this is what it looked like moments ago, and you can see the water from the fire trucks and the color of that smoke, and that means that it is fueling up the fire. It's pretty intense, and as that happens to be the beginning of the fire, already we're seeing some of this smoke now turning into a light gray. So by all indications, getting an upper hand on that 3-alarm fire. To get you back now to Washington with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She's in the middle of a White House briefing here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Was the pardon of his son. Everything else was signed with an auto pen, but that one was clearly his own signature. To your first question about Russia, I have no news to share with you on that. Sure, in the yellow.
According to media reports, Maduro has sent a letter to President Trump, but President Trump avoided saying whether he has read it. Did he receive it?
We have seen this letter. Frankly, I think there were a lot of lies that were repeated by Maduro in that letter, and the administration's position on Venezuela has not changed. We view the Maduro regime as illegitimate, and the president has clearly shown that he's willing to use any and all means necessary to stop the illegal trafficking of deadly drugs from the Venezuelan regime into the United States of America.
Context of the letter?
Gilbertson, go ahead.
The admin,
To you, and then go ahead. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. Whitline with Waterhawk News. The admin has openly discussed taking legal action against officials in sanctuary jurisdictions. Just this last weekend, we saw Mayor of Evanston, Daniel Bliss, rioting and protesting outside of an ICE facility near Chicago. Are there plans to start arresting sanctuary mayors or governors going forwards?
Unless they commit a crime, I don't see them being arrested. But if they are violating federal law, if they are violating state law, then of course they should be arrested by state and local law enforcement. If they're violating federal law, then they can expect the consequences of that behavior. Nick.
Thank you, Caroline. Would the president like to see Congress pass a national holiday honoring Charlie Kirk annually?
That's an interesting question. I'm sure he wouldn't oppose such a thing, but you can pose that to him yourself next time you get the chance.
Sure thing. And to follow up, too, I know the president is honoring Charlie with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Is there anything else that we don't know of in the works to honor Charlie?
Not at this time, but we do look forward to that Medal of Freedom ceremony very soon. Daniel.
Thanks, Caroline. This past Friday, Adam Schiff, Tim Kaine, they introduced a resolution on Capitol Hill aimed at stopping the successful kinetic strikes against narco-terrorists in the Caribbean Sea. What does a move like this, what type of message does it send to families, specifically families who have suffered at the hands of deadly narco drugs like these?
I definitely think it sends the wrong message. We wish that Democrats would get on board with a very simple idea of ending drug trafficking and securing our homeland. And I saw a report this morning that the Dominican Republic actually helped us seize a boat that was on its way from Venezuela to the United States of America with lots of deadly drugs on board. And so if you actually hear from Caribbean nations in the region, they are thankful and grateful for the administration's efforts, and they're working alongside us to end this plague of drug trafficking through their seas. Sure, Karen.
Over the weekend, Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries sent a letter to the White House asking for a meeting with the president to talk about government funding. Has the White House responded to that letter, and will the president sit down with them to talk about this, given that deadline is now 8 days away?
Discussions are ongoing with both Republican and Democratic members of Capitol Hill. I don't have any meetings or any scheduling updates for you today, but what I will share is that what this White House wants and what Republicans want, we want a clean funding extension to keep the government open. That's all we're advocating for, a simple, clean budget extension, a straightforward, responsible solution to keep the government open to November 21st and allow the full year appropriations process to move forward. And I will add, this is the same budget that the Democrats approved 6 months ago, just adjusted for inflation. And unfortunately, all of a sudden now, they want to shut down the government. And if the government is shut down, it's only going to, it will be the fault of the Democrats, and it will only only hurt the most vulnerable in our country, our seniors, our veterans, our military families, and increasing security for members of Congress, which is something this White House and the administration supports. And if you look back at the statements made by Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the past, they too have advocated against a shutdown and for keeping the government open. Democrat Chuck Schumer himself said a shutdown would mean chaos and pain and needless heartache for the American people. He said once, avoiding a shutdown is very good news for the country, for our veterans, for parents and children, for farmers, and for small businesses. Hakeem Jeffries also said it's about the harm. Families will be hurt if there is a government shutdown. Farmers will be hurt. Holiday travel will be impacted. Democrats clearly know what the right thing to do is here. It's to join with Republicans to pass this clean funding extension. That's what the White House and the president wants. And with that, we will see you all at 4 o'clock for this big announcement later on. Thanks, guys.
And just wrapping up that White House briefing happening live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Like Ms. Levitt said, more to come with President Trump's announcement expected later on this afternoon. With that, we're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back to Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. Want to let you know that it is the first day of fall. We're about to enter it now in the 2 o'clock hour. And our Majestic Storm filed this report earlier on the stream with our Ben Thompson. Here it is for you now on WCNC Plus.
2:19, we are welcoming in fall. And let me tell you, today it's gorgeous, but it is not going to feel like it whatsoever. This afternoon, planned for sunny skies, dry conditions, upper 80s to near 90-degree temperatures. Not just today, but we get hotter all the way through Wednesday. Again, an uptick in that heat and humidity. Rain chances, boy, we need some rain. It's starting to get really dry out there, and we do have some opportunity in our 7-day forecast this week. Heavy rain will be possible Thursday and Friday, mixed in with some thunderstorms as well. And of course, we are keeping a close eye on the tropics as it is starting to get quite active. Yesterday, we topped off at 87 degrees. It was a gorgeous Sunday. Hopefully, you're able to get outside and enjoy it. Today, we're kind of just doing a rinse and repeat. We're warming things up for the last couple of hours of summer, and then, yes, going to be a very warm start to fall. Here's the rest of the day today, kind of a day planner as you're making those plans for the remainder of our Monday. Not seeing any significant problems there other than it just feeling a little hot outside. Now, if you're lucky enough to be out in the mountains today, this is a pretty nice place to be. Nice mix of sun and clouds with comfortable temperatures mainly into the low to mid 70s. Across the foothills, low to mid 80s. 84 out towards Morganton, 82 today for our good friends in Lenoir. And then we're turning up the heat just a bit more across the Charlotte metro area. Nearing 90 degrees again today from Concord to Lincolnton, even out towards Shelby. And then just to the south of us, we'll see those temperatures that'll be very similar. 87 in Lancaster, 87 in Chesterfield, and about 85 today in Chester. Over the next 10 days, 87 today, getting warmer and warmer through Wednesday. We could have another 90-degree day come Wednesday, and then temperatures drop just a bit, but still holding steady into the low 80s, so rather warm for those highs. Remember, this is our updated drought monitor. It gets updated and released to us every Thursday, so we'll have another update this upcoming Thursday, and from now until Thursday itself, we don't have a lot of changes, so likely this is going to get a little worse over the next couple of days, indicating that we do have abnormally dry conditions for parts of our viewing area. Now look at my precipitation. Again, this is over the next 10 days, not saying much today and tomorrow. Now if you're in the mountains, you could see a few raindrops here and there, but then things start to increase, especially by Thursday and into Friday. That's going to be our next best opportunity for some passing showers. This is what radar could look like this afternoon around 4 o'clock. Again, a nice mix of sun and clouds, watching the mountains to see if any of those showers do sneak in. Otherwise, a beautiful start to the first day of fall this afternoon. Lots of sunshine ahead, and then tomorrow for our Tuesday, again, kind of a rinse and repeat. Heat and humidity could provide some instability for some passing showers, maybe an isolated storm. Overall, a very, very limited chances for the mountains and the foothills, about a 20% chance. Watch what happens, though. We will increase our rain chances as we're heading to late into this week. We're looking at Thursday and Friday specifically for more of that widespread rain to move in up and down the East Coast. I mean, yes, we do need that. That is definitely one thing that we could all use, is a little bit of rain, because it is getting very, very dry. However, we're watching the tropics. This is now a major hurricane. This is Hurricane Gabrielle. So continuing to follow that very, very carefully. You can see as it continues to rotate and strengthen. It's a Category 3 hurricane right now. This is 11 a.m. advisory, moving north at 10 miles an hour, gust up to 150. Still not making impacts across the United States and staying east of Bermuda, and that is going to continue to be the trend. So we'll keep you up to date with that one. But the tropics itself are getting very, very busy. So here's Gabrielle moving off to the north and to the east. This next wave likely going to take a similar path, still north and east, staying away from the United States. But it's this area of concern shaded in orange that could actually bring some impacts across the southeast. There is still a lot of uncertainty, but over the next 7 days, there's about a 40% chance of seeing development. Up until then, rip currents will be dangerous across the Carolinas. Do keep that in mind. It's just that time of the year. So stay close to the WCNC weather team. For now, though, there's that Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast.
All right, coming up at 2 o'clock, I want to let you know that Senator Ted Budd will be holding a press conference live from Hendersonville. He will be talking about Helene recovery. In the meantime, if you were with us last week in the morning, I talked to him here on Live Impact News on several topics, including Hurricane Helene recovery, recovery aid to farmers, as well as additional cleanup funds. And then we also covered the stabbing death of Irina Zaritska, as well as Charlie Kirk, and then on to AI. So a wide variety of topics covered by Senator Budd. While we wait for him to speak here at 2 o'clock, we'll play this for you now here on WCNC Plus. But I wanted to get to our special guest this morning because we are coming up on a year since Hurricane Helene and parts of western North Carolina are still reeling from its devastating impact. Joining us right now, making this appointment, North Carolina Senator Ted Budd, who is helping on these recovery efforts. Senator Budd, thanks for joining us here on Live Impact News.
Thanks for having me.
Senator Budd, let's start with some positive news for North Carolina farmers. You helped secure $221 million in federal aid for agricultural losses from Hurricane Helene. Walk us through what this funding will specifically cover and how quickly farmers can expect to see it.
Oh, this was a great breakthrough. It was great to see Commissioner of North Carolina Ag, Steve Troxler, in Buncombe County, right in the heart of a lot of this devastation just recently. And if we go back, he and I were in that forestry helicopter seeing the early days of the damage and what needed to be done. This $221 million goes to infrastructure that may not be able to be insured by private insurance or other grants or other programs. If someone lost a barn, if someone lost culverts, permanent infrastructure on their farm or their property, their crops, their fields, it's not a crop replacement. It's not a traditional insurance. This says, look, there are things that aren't covered, and this $221 million goes to support those farmers.
Okay, all right. So what have you heard from farmers directly? What are their most pressing needs besides crop replacement then?
Well, a lot of it depends on what type of crop they are. And if you look out in western North Carolina, you've got a lot of forestry, and then you also have a lot of vegetable crops. You have tomatoes that require a lot of labor. Some of that labor, they lost their jobs when we lost our crops out there. And so making sure they get the labor back, making sure that the customers are still there, making sure the roads are good so they can get their product to market, and then just making sure the process is good. People don't get into farming to do more paperwork. They get in because they love what they do, they love the land, they love serving their clients and customers, and they love seeing, they love growing product. And they just don't want any more bureaucracy. So the goal here is to make government do what it ought to be able to do, and that's to help people.
You've also been working on trying to get these delays, addressing the delays in federal reimbursement funding. Recently, the extra $64 million released for Western North Carolina cleanup. The push for this funding, talk us about your approach to it and whether you believe the federal response has been adequate then.
President Trump came out even before he was sworn into office, even before he was elected, and it was in Swannanoa and in Buncombe County. And then he came back shortly after he was elected. And he comes from a place of being a builder and a rebuilder, and that's the things that we emphasized those days. And he's all on board for Western North Carolina. He asked me about it, he asked Michael Watley about it, and we are all on board. Somewhere in the middle, it got caught. And we're making sure that the money doesn't get trapped. That's why this $64 million recent release is a great win. But again, it's late and there's more to come. There's more projects that are going into the hopper that are being reviewed. And we just need, if the money is owed to Western North Carolina, then let's get it there. We want to prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. And if that's happening, I'm all on board with investigating any case like that because there are people there with real needs. But let's not delay it in the name of DOGE, or let's not delay it in the name of waste, fraud, and abuse when that's not really the case. It's just bureaucratic quagmire. So let's get this money to the people that really need it.
Shifting to the tragic incident here in Charlotte, I know you're well aware of the death of Irina Zarutskaz on the light rail system here. You've called this a result of failed criminal reform efforts. What policy changes do you believe need to happen at the federal level to help address any repeat offenders or offenses like this?
Well, if this is on federal DOT funded transportation, then there is a federal nexus. But I would also say you have to think about the state and the local, the municipal laws and make sure there's enforcement there. Make sure that, like DeCarlos Brown Jr., that he's not released 14 times. This is a state and local decision, and policies put in place by reimagining criminal justice by Roy Cooper that allowed a person to come out 14 times. I don't think that's a good idea, somebody that's a danger to themselves and a danger to others. And we saw the worst case. This young lady is the same age as my daughter, so I don't just think about this as a federal legislator, somebody that North Carolina sends to Washington, D.C. I think about this as a dad of two daughters that actually were born in Charlotte. I think about this as a citizen. So I'm neighbor to neighbor on this one, and this is absolutely unacceptable. So we're going to do what we can, but the biggest difference, it's going to happen with the right leadership in the state and the right leadership at a local level.
Yes, speaking at the state level, we are seeing legislators go to discuss this on Monday, and the discussions and the solutions, whether it's ending cashless bail, looking at magistrate oversight versus mental health resources from the federal level side. You know, how can you support these state level efforts?
Well, a lot of it, we're constant communication. I think the real heroes are those that go to Raleigh each and every week. They're hardly paid a thing, and they love what they do. They love their districts and their state. So thanks to those in Raleigh that are probably going to be delivering the biggest difference, in this case for Charlotte. And for the rest of the municipalities and cities that have public transportation, we would never want this to happen again. But it's not just there. I mean, there was an incident in Charlotte months before of a veteran being set on fire and permanently, or actually that was another incident, but that was assaulted and ended up with paralysis. So there's multiple incidences, and it's just heartbreaking. So local changes are going to be the biggest changes, but let's get the right leadership in place.
Again, speaking from a father that you said was had with daughters that were Irina's age, you spoke to the family, Irina herself.
I did. Now, we were able to help the father come from Ukraine for this. This is a dad that had to watch his daughter's funeral on FaceTime. And it's absolutely heartbreaking that it had to happen. But he is now able to be here to visit with family, and hopefully that'll provide some comfort to him, the family that's here. And this is a young lady that was buying a car, and then soon was, she was waiting to drive the car so she could learn and get her license, and she had planned on buying a home. She had a good job. She was a contributor. She was here legally, and she had a bright future, and she had lots of good relationships. The extended family that was caring for her loved her. They're heartbroken, and they don't want this politicized. What they want is people to understand what happened, and they want to prevent this from ever happening again. And if we could honor the loss that we had here, it would be by getting good laws. Let's end cashless bail. Let's support law enforcement, and let's put people in jail that are a harm to themselves and to others.
You also experienced a personal loss with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and condolences to you as he supported you during your election. What do you think needs to happen? What needs to change with political figures and leaders in our country? We're hearing the words of division, divisiveness in our country more and more often these days.
The easy answer here is probably the wrong answer, and that's to say, hey, both sides need to knock it off. Look, I think all of us as leaders need to be responsible for our language, but if you look at the...
All right, Julie Kay here. We are interrupting that previously recorded interview with Senator Ted Budd to bring you something live with Senator Ted Budd. He is actually in Hendersonville for a field hearing, a Senate Small Business Committee field hearing today to discuss Helene recovery. Multiple local leaders and local business leaders. So let's listen and see what he has to say.
And Helene caused almost $80 billion in damage, making it one of the worst hurricanes to hit the United States, ranking alongside Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Katrina. Here in North Carolina, 39 counties were eligible for federal assistance following the storm. Those counties comprise 40% of the state's population and 45% of the state's GDP. In the aftermath, our state's disaster survivors started down the challenging road of rebuilding. I want to say how proud I am of our state for coming together in this time of need, and the sheer tenacity of everyone out here in Western North Carolina who lent a hand and helped folks in dire straits. Frankly, I wish the same could have been said for our federal government, But unfortunately, under President Biden, they were unprepared and asleep at the wheel. The Small Business Administration, or the SBA, provides disaster loans and have been crucial to many Americans recovering from natural disasters. And North Carolinians in the wake of Helene were no different. The SBA gives eligible individuals access to disaster recovery loans up to $500,000 and eligible businesses loans up to $2 million for physical damage and economic injury. These loans help restore homes to their pre-disaster condition and help businesses replace equipment and maintain payroll. Unfortunately, due to the blunders of the Biden's SBA, too many North Carolinians were unable to find the help they needed to simply rebuild and regain their livelihoods. The prior administration mismanaged the SBA's disaster loan program by issuing irresponsible rules and dramatically increasing the cost of making and administering disaster loans. Moreover, as SBA drew closer to exhausting the funds it had on hand for these loans, the staff at the wheel of the Biden administration failed in one of their most basic duties, and that is notifying Congress that funding was running low. This led to an unacceptable 66-day shortfall lasting from October 12th through December 20th of last year. Here in North Carolina, 97% of business loan applicants were impacted by this shortfall. For more than 2 months, the federal government left survivors in North Carolina on their own with nothing but bootstraps and their community to assist in rebuilding. We must ensure that a crisis like this will never happen again. This SBA program is instrumental in the rebuilding process, and once it was back to working, it has served over 3,500 North Carolinians following Hurricane Helene. And that's why earlier this year, I introduced the Disaster Loan Accountability and Reform Act to create more safeguards against a future shortfall. This bill would require annual appropriation to SBA's disaster loan program, inform Congress when funds are low, and increase reporting to Congress. I want to thank my colleagues on the Small Business Committee for working in a bipartisan manner to get this bill through committee. I'm grateful for the many changes the Trump administration has made to address the problems in this program since January, including improvements to reporting, local coordination, and constituent services. However, we're still recovering from the aftermath of Helene. It's critical to understand the impacts of the shortfall last year and what steps can be taken to further safeguard disaster survivors after being left without aid again. Returning Western North Carolina to normal following Helene hinges on our federal government and its agencies working in coordination with one another. I will continue to engage with each of our cabinet agencies to ensure our federal government is responsive to the needs of Western North Carolina. I want to thank our witnesses on both panels today. And I'm honored that you've decided to join us to speak on the efficacy and unity of SBA's programs and ways to improve. I look forward to your testimony. And before we start our testimony, I ask unanimous consent that the witnesses' full statements be included in the record, without objection, and so ordered. For a quick run of show, I want to note that each of the witnesses will have 5 minutes to give their remarks, and then we'll turn to questions. I'll introduce each of you and then recognize you for 5 minutes for your testimony. Now, we do have 2 panels today, so after our first panel, we'll take a brief moment to let them get up, and we'll have our second panel seated. And we'll now proceed with our first panel. We'll start with Commissioner Rebecca McCall, who currently serves as a Henderson County Commissioner. Commissioner McCall was sworn in on December 3rd, 2018, and is serving in her second term as Commissioner. She served as the chair of the Henderson County Board of Commissioners when Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina. She's a Henderson County native and holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from Montreat College. We thank you for being here, and you're recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you for having me. September 27th, 2024 will be a day we long remember in Henderson County and Western North Carolina. Hurricane Helene hit us with full force. Not only was there an enormous amount of rainfall that resulted in flooding as deep as 30 feet in some areas, there were also 2,000 landslides, 80 of which were in Henderson County. The landslides uprooted giant trees and dislodged mammoth boulders that took out everything in its path. In the Hickory Nut Gorge area, the river grew 3 times wider than normal. Homes and businesses along the river were washed away, as well as the land they once stood on. The power outages that lasted up to 2 weeks in most areas registered to 1.5 million in the multi-county area, with 95% of Henderson County affected. More than 425 miles of roads and 200-plus bridges were severely damaged in Henderson County alone. All of this has left an impact on our businesses. Those that were not severely damaged by flooding or fallen trees were still affected by power outages and, most importantly, loss of business because there were no customers. Even after power was restored, the water receded, and the main roads opened up. We were left with the cleanup and rebuilding that continues today, 1 year later. As a result, many businesses lost weeks of sales. Having been a small business owner, I am aware that 1 week of slow business is tolerable. 2 weeks is concerning, but 3 weeks and beyond can be devastating. There was also the ripple-down effect where loss of sales led to loss of inventory purchases, which affects other businesses, layoffs of employees, and for the county, reduced sales tax income. Within a few days, organizations showed up to offer assistance. SBA was one of those. We quickly established a disaster relief center. SBA had a presence at the DRC to answer questions and assist in application filing for loans. Once we opened those doors, SBA representatives were there to speak with residents about the possibility of loans to rebuild. Our staff conveyed how SBA was there eager and ready to assist those in need. The staff who manned the table were friendly, accommodating, and helpful. We commend SBA on their presence and willingness to help and are grateful for their continued support all these many months later. The benefits of the SBA program, though, are numbered. The paperwork is straightforward and the low interest rate forms are favorable, but when asking people why they didn't apply, the biggest issue we heard was that these are loans, not grants. While recovering, many individuals and businesses didn't feel comfortable taking on another loan that they would have to pay back, especially as they were uncertain about their source of income in the coming months.
All right, you have been listening into some testimony, the first testimony on this Small Business Recovery Committee hearing that's being held in Hendersonville. This is about Helene recovery. It's being led by Senator Ted Budd, and we're going to hear from a lot of really important people, not just federal officials, county officials, but also the business area Chamber of Commerce from Boone. So we've got a lot of really important testimony to get to. Also watching at the same time the Karen Reed civil trial and a really big fire out of Cleveland, Ohio. So we've got a lot of headlines to get to. Right now it's 2:12. We're going to take a quick break and head back to that testimony. Stick with us. All right, we are back. Julie Kay here. It's approaching 2:15. Lots going on today, but we're going to go ahead and head back. It looks like we're about to hear from the next testimony out of Hendersonville. This is a Senate hearing in the field where they're talking about Helene recovery specifically for small businesses. So let's take a listen in and see what they're talking about now.
Were assessed at some point by SBA after we filled out an application for assistance in October of 24. And I was not notified when the assessment was done, but I did receive a phone call shortly after that, November 6th of 2024, from an SBA staffer with questions about our application. We were approved shortly after that, and everything seemed to be going extremely well. Our application to SBA is for the funding to rebuild the destroyed building. My other buildings and contents were also included, and we did need that financial assistance to do some repairs and replace contents in both of them as well. We knew at the time that no funds were available, and we were told that when we filled out the application, but we were assured that funds would be available soon, and they were, I believe, in January. So we were excited to move forward. Our issues started after that, basically in February of 2025, when I started reaching out to the SBA officers to answer their questions, but also try to get my questions answered. Every few weeks, I would receive a notification that my case manager had been changed. I would then try to reach out with a phone call and/or email to my new case manager with questions, but would not hear from them or would get a very slow response. Then after a few weeks, I would be notified that I had a new case manager. Became very frustrating. Over about a 6-month period, I had 5 different case managers. During this time, there were several requests for information from SBA, which raised many questions from me about their procedures and how much I would be allowed to borrow and other issues. Many times I would have questions and would reach out to the case manager and not get the information I needed. My impression of the process was that many of these case managers were not correctly trained or did not have the experience needed to respond to my questions. I have worked in a previous life as a bank loan officer and am very familiar with commercial lending. It was frustrating to try and make building plans and business decisions based on information I was told and then be notified that something had changed or was not being allowed. This would require me to attempt to clarify information and ask questions, but a lot of times I wouldn't get a timely response, or I'd have to deal with a new case manager and bring them up to speed. The whole process has now worked out, thankfully, but it did take about 7 to 8 months longer than it realistically should, in my opinion. I've heard similar stories from other businesses in Chimney Rock Village who have been very frustrated with the length of time necessary for their SBA applications to be processed and the confusing information that's given to them regarding their applications and requests for funding. So I'll just reiterate that. I believe there's a lack of training, and I think that's really the main issue that I noticed as a business owner, is that people were not able to respond to the questions, especially in a timely manner. And I just feel like with better management, maybe that problem could be solved.
Thank you. Now we turn to David Jackson, who serves as President and CEO of the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce in Boone, North Carolina. And earlier this year, Mr. Jackson was recognized as a Community Advocate of the Year by North Carolina Rural Center. He holds a Bachelor of Science from Appalachian State University. It's a great school. We thank you for being here, and you're recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you. It's great to see a fellow Mountaineer here as well today. Senator, thank you for bringing this committee to Western North Carolina and spending time in this beautiful area of the state. In the testimony that I submitted, I detailed some of the positive aspects of the response with SBA and FEMA in the wake of Hurricane Helene, along with opportunities for improvement. I'd like to build on those comments this afternoon by first reiterating sincere gratitude for the SBA and FEMA field agents that arrived in our communities to staff the Business and Disaster Resource Centers. These workers left their families to come assist ours. They brought empathy and compassion along with the seal of the United States government. And they helped our citizens and business owners understand a language and a process that was new, confusing, and at times very frustrating. These agents were the conduit for over $85 million in allocated funding through SBA businesses and EIDL loans in Severity 1 counties, as defined by the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina in their Helene Business Loss Assessment Report. That report that represents just more than half of the dollars that have been allocated to Western North Carolina to support our small businesses after the storm. The estimated economic loss in the fourth quarter of last year for the region was calculated in that same EDPNC report at $1.8 billion. The philanthropic dollars that have been raised nearly match the SBA's deployed loan payouts, but don't come close to satisfying the loss of revenue or stability our small businesses saw disappear over the course of about 72 hours. $1.8 billion in loss cannot be absorbed just through loans to the businesses that lost inventory, revenue predictability, staffing, and core infrastructure. Many of those impacted businesses were not finished paying off COVID-era loans when the storm hit, and the thought of more debt was daunting and simply not economically responsible, so some just closed. These small businesses are the heartbeat of the economy your committee aspires to support. We need diversity and available disaster funding for businesses to restore savings, to supplement losses not covered by insurance, and to restore economic stability for our local governments, all of which suffered sales and occupancy tax declines during one of the most profitable quarters of our calendar. Philanthropic support for businesses has come from fundraising from a number of organizations, individual donors, and local chambers of commerce. The Boone Area Chamber Foundation has raised over $1.3 million in hurricane relief, the majority of which has been deployed through business disaster resiliency grants across Watauga, Ashe, and Avery counties. We will release a fourth round of that funding next month, centered mostly around storm-related revenue loss. Chambers across Western North Carolina have worked with partners to generate north of $6 million in direct business disaster support grants. Partners like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Mountain BizWorks, Dogwood Health Trust, through a partnership with Governor Stein and the North Carolina General Assembly, made grant funds available to small businesses. The economic ramifications of this region would be far greater if not for those efforts, but don't come close to covering the loss. As I bring my remarks to a close, I offer our collective partnership. My chamber colleagues and I are eager to participate in conversations about what our business community has experienced. We're eager to strategize and create a small business disaster support playbook that can be replicated in communities like ours across the state and the country. We feel strongly that funding must come from blended sources and it must feature creative avenues for deployment, as we see not all programs fit all businesses. We're ready to help the SBA lean into their preparedness culture that they've tried to create but honestly hasn't gotten the traction it deserves, because frankly, that's not how our society is wired. We encourage you to bet on small businesses. It's the Main Street coffee shops, the outfitters, the art galleries, the retailers that make our communities different than suburbia. Many visitors use the Blue Ridge Parkway as their escape, and I thank you and your staff for your leadership in prioritizing parkway repairs and balancing the timing of that work along with the Great American Outdoors Act projects that our region wholeheartedly supports. Work that will keep the parkway available for generations to come. There is no more unique connector of our communities than the Blue Ridge Parkway, and the $1.3 billion of annual economic impact this national park generates is essential for our region's economic prosperity. I conclude with this comment from a local business owner in Watauga County that summarizes the mood of the moment and certainly captures some of what we felt collectively during the 2 months that you referenced a moment ago, that last year SBA was without disaster funding. He said, "While I recognize the challenges our leaders face, I remind them that business is not about a vote. It's not about the next election. It's about our lives. And I'd like them to recognize that we represent a real and meaningful part of our economy." Thank you for your opportunity to speak today and look forward to additional questions.
Thank you, and I thank each of you for your testimony. I recognize myself for some questions. As we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary, that's actually this Thursday night, Friday, the 27th, we're all reflecting on the horrors that were brought by the storm. And the scars left by Helene are innumerable, but I'm proud of how we're come together as a community to support each other in rebuilding after the storm. So with this in mind, would you walk us through the immediate aftermath of the storm and what the federal response was like on the ground? Commissioner McCall, we'll start with you.
Well, frankly, I wasn't even thinking about the federal government at the time. I was thinking about how to get from my house to downtown because every road was blocked by either fallen trees or fallen power lines or flooded or one way or the other. It took hours and hours and hours to clear a path just to get from one spot to another. But we did come together and we did take care of each other, and our EMS was amazing. They had prepared days ahead of time, and they were in prominent locations so that they could respond quickly. And our fire departments had gone door to door previously, days before, to evacuate people that we thought needed to be out of harm's way, and that saved many, many, many lives. We were setting up shelters. We were looking for generators. We were doing everything that we could think of just to survive. I'm going to tell on our county manager. He broke into Ingalls and took food off the shelves just to take to our EMS facility so that those people would have something to eat. But then we saw response from numerous organizations. It was volunteers, it was nonprofits, it was churches, it was people coming from all over bringing things and bringing food trucks and helping us get through each day, one day at a time. FEMA did show up. SBA showed up maybe a week. I think it was a week later. It's hard to put in my mind the time elements, but everybody did start to come. They had to learn the lay of the land, though. They were unfamiliar with who we were or what was going on. But they were here. They wanted to help. They wanted to respond. But we felt a little bit like they expected us to cater to them. And we did not have time to do that. So we said, here's what it is. Figure it out yourself. Tell us what you need. We'll find the best way to help you get what you need. So we did set up a distribution or a disaster relief center. We turned our college parking lot over to FEMA, and they set up all of their places to stay there. They took it over, and I remember seeing all these trucks show up, and it was like a convoy of trucks, and they were pulling these trailers that looked like shower trailers, and I was going, they're here, the shower trailers are here, but they were only for FEMA employees. They weren't for our public. So we had to wait for others to show up. But like I said, they came, they did their thing, they went door to door, they put flyers on doors, but it was more we took care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. We took care of each other. And that's how we got through this, and that's how we're continuing to get through this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Mayor?
Well, the initial response was certainly much more local, as the Commissioner said. The volunteer fire departments did a fantastic job, the county officials. We had a lot of out-of-town people and just local citizens, for that matter, bring equipment in to help out. SBA and FEMA did show up, well, FEMA more specifically, but it was the very early, and I don't mean to cast too many dispersions on them, but the very early was more like almost a PR type appearance. I'm from FEMA and I'm here. But they did show up and start going around and assessing the damage. But I think one thing you have to sort of keep in mind is that it's kind of a multi-layered approach. I mean, local obviously is going to be the first ones to respond. And honestly, in my opinion, the federal government, FEMA and SBA, their response does come several weeks and maybe even several months later as you're trying to rebuild more. The biggest problem that we had, and I'll switch to my mayor hat, was there is a tremendous amount of cleanup that has to be done after an event like this right away, and you can't even wait a day. I mean, people need to have roads cleared, driveways cleared, access for safety and just for the well-being of the public. So that falls on the local governments. It falls on Chimney Rock Village, for example. But the problem that we faced was that's extremely expensive for a small community like ours, and FEMA was set up is set up basically as a reimbursement agency for those types of things, and that moved extremely slow. So I think a lot of your small communities faced a huge financial crunch trying to pay these local contractors who were doing a phenomenal job of cleaning, but then you turn around for funding to pay for that from FEMA, and it takes quite a bit of time. And I hope, and I do understand that maybe some changes are being made along those lines. But as far as the federal response, that's really the biggest hurdle that I saw, was just the way that the funding goes to reimburse the communities. It maybe should be funding up front for some of these immediate needs.
Thank you. It's helpful. David.
Yeah, so I'll start this off in a couple of different ways. First off, I remember our FEMA administrator's name, Jake Kawakowski. He was the first person to reach out to us. I found out very quickly that in order to get FEMA or SBA staff into the community, that required a reservation authorization number from a hotel. If they were going to come and stay and be deployed, that confirmation number was what triggered the deployment. So our office ended up coordinating about 100 different federal personnel for the local area that way. And we were glad to be able to do so, and I'm appreciative that because of the storm's impact on the football game, we had enough hotel space for that to occur. There was some initial confusion about the setup of the Business Resource Center and the Disaster Resource Center. They were co-located in a facility that we manage, which we were happy to do, but who was taking the lead on that? And that's where Jake was able to come in and say, here is the process. That facility had to be inspected twice by 2 different agencies before full deployment could occur, and that ended up taking a few extra days to get that resource up. I will say, though, that the staff that we had in Boone working out of that center seemed to be specifically trained for some key things. And I go back to Jake for a second. He was a former firefighter with a background in building planning and inspections. That became incredibly helpful dealing with the impact of the disaster that we had on our side. And again, I mentioned it in my testimony, the fact that the folks that got deployed were disaster survivors. We had folks from Houston, Puerto Rico, Florida, that were able to teach a language that people did not understand, and brought some compassion along with that. So that part of our experience was very helpful. Our FEMA staff and SBA staff got in line with our emergency management very quickly. And Will Holt was able to make a lot of the decisions and make sure that there were people that were going out with those folks. Because one of the first things that was shared with us was that this disaster brought a topographical challenge that nobody had ever seen before. And they just didn't know where to go or how to access some of those areas. So that I would totally agree with. Our local responders were essential in making sure that the federal response could get deployed accurately.
That's very helpful. Mr. Mayor, when you were speaking, it reminded me of Ronald Reagan's 9 famous words: "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." But hopefully with some reforms, we can actually be a little more helpful. This is very good. Appreciate that. As a lot of you know, the Biden administration made a number of changes to SBA's disaster loan program, including increasing the unsecured loan limit and changing the credit elsewhere standards. These changes, coupled with a lack of congressional notifications when funding for the disaster loan program was almost exhausted, led to a 66-day shortfall in the program. And this is just days after the storm in early October. During this shortfall in North Carolina alone, over 900 businesses were left waiting to receive loan approvals and disbursements, thus delaying our recovery by over 2 months. Mr. O'Leary, can you talk about the impacts the shortfall had on your business and the community?
Well, it affected people's planning, I guess, for the individual businesses. We were, like I said, we were able to get the applications done fairly quickly, so that response was good. And then even the follow-up to me personally was pretty quick, I thought, and I was approved for the loans that they said, but they said there's no money. So that was extremely frustrating. And then when you're working with, obviously you have to work with a builder if you're rebuilding, spending the money in some fashion. And those people are asking what your plans are or when you can start, and you don't know. There's just so much uncertainty.
Do you know how long after the storm of September 27 that you actually began the paperwork process?
We did in probably mid-October. I don't know the exact date.
Okay.
But yeah, mid-October. And we were actually approved. I did have an interview on November 6th, and shortly after that, our application was approved.
Okay.
But approved,
with
no funding. Yes.
Yeah. Which didn't happen until earlier this year, 2025.
Right.
The funding. In North Carolina, we're entrepreneurs at heart, including in rebuilding. Mr. Jackson, the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce set up its own program. I think you addressed that a few moments ago for business resiliency grants. Could you talk more about how these grants bridge the gap during this time with no SBA funding, and how it continues to help recovery today?
Yes, thank you for acknowledging that. There was no gap to bridge, it was the money. Mm-hmm. We were very quick to find out that through the delay process and in the SBA loan program, certainly that happened, as you mentioned, right after the storm was over. We found also that the timing of insurance payouts that weren't coming seemed like everything was a negative answer. The state of North Carolina was working through the General Assembly on their own ideas around grants, but nobody's got anything that looks like that from a governmental standpoint that is a true grant. I think one of the unfortunate things about the timing of this too is that this disaster occurred close enough to the COVID pandemic that that's what people were looking for. The amount of times I heard, are we going to get a PPP loan? Are we going to get something that behaves like that? And the behavior, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Some sort of forgivable loan that has some performance tied to it could have been the right recipe. But without that, not only our chamber, but chambers across the region and other partners like Mountain BizWorks and others had no other choice but to try to get the philanthropic dollars. And that's where I think there's a silver lining here, and just finding out how much people care about our region. Those dollars came in from all over the country, all over the world for that matter. And they were small, they were large payouts, there were philanthropic agencies that got behind that work, but they wanted to see the small communities that we all represent here survive this. So we were able to put together an initial payout of $206,000 that went directly to our early childhood businesses and the families that have kids in those programs. We paid off tuition for the month of October because we knew that families needed some money to make quick repairs, but we needed that industry stabilized. Soon after that, we've deployed a little over $1 million now in grants, small end $500, top end about $25,000. But you hear from businesses that had the foundation of their business knocked off, a building knocked off its foundation, or major infrastructure hurdles that a $25,000 grant's not going to touch. So it gets back to the broader picture of how are we looking at business in terms of the disaster. We've got good programs for the individuals. A lot of these individuals have family businesses that are almost symbiotic. And that's where we are eager to have some conversation about what comes next and how can we have something that's readily available, deployable by communities for these instances.
Thank you. The SBA's Office of Inspector General and the U.S. Government Accountability Office have both reported that the SBA fails to effectively reach rural communities following a disaster. After Hurricane Helene, these problems were only compounded by downed telephone lines and little to no internet service. So Mr. O'Leary, you were not only a leader of the community, but you were also a small business owner. So how did you learn about SBA's products, especially in those early days, and what sort of outreach did they do in your community to let you know who they were and how they could help?
We learned primarily about SBA through the FEMA representative. So if you were a business and you went to the FEMA representative and filled out, they encouraged you to fill out applications, and we did too. We encouraged all of our residents to fill them out. And if you were a business, they directed you to SBA. Our problem was SBA didn't have an office set up in Chimney Rock Village. They were mostly set up, the two I remember were in Asheville and Hendersonville. which at the time we couldn't go directly there because, like you said, the roads being out. So we had to drive about an hour and a half drive to get to those offices. Eventually, they did send some representatives down after, I can't remember the exact time frame, but it would have been in the January, February time frame that they sent some SBA officers, yes.
FEMA was in the early weeks?
FEMA was much earlier. FEMA, we had FEMA representatives in mid-October that were down there talking to residents, yes.
And so in that early period, FEMA was telling you about SBA, but it was months before SBA came to you.
Right, and FEMA said fill out a FEMA application, but then if you were a business, you had to take that next step and fill out an SBA application. So.
Okay, thank you. The U.S. Small Business Administration provides loans to renters, homeowners, and businesses following a disaster. SBA established a field presence in North Carolina shortly after the storm to provide in-person consultations for these types of loans. We talked about that just a second ago, although it wasn't always where the need was. So, Commissioner McCall, I know that Hendersonville had an active recovery site with multiple agencies. Do you think this was beneficial? And what was your experience in coordinating with the federal resources?
Yes, it was very beneficial. We were lucky enough to find a place. It was had previously been a grocery store, so it was a large space that we were able to separate and have FEMA on one side and our local nonprofits and other organizations on another side. Even our DHS was there for a period of time for the SNAP project. Having everything under one roof was helpful because people could come, and if they met with say FEMA, and the FEMA said you need to meet with SBA, then it was all right there together. One of the problems that I think needs to be addressed is all of the application filing. I mean, it's all the same government, and there were multiple applications that had to be filed, and if you didn't dot an I or cross a T, you were automatically denied. I actually think there's a movie about this, but I actually believe that they're trying to say no first and get people to appeal. And a lot of people didn't know that they could appeal, and so they just went away. But if anybody contacted me, I said appeal, appeal, appeal again, appeal a third time, appeal a fourth time. One of the organizations that was there represented the Commissioner of Insurance for North Carolina. And insurance really was concerning because the insurance denials were worse than the FEMA denials, I believe. There was a family that I know of that their whole entire house flooded from raw sewage. And the sewage came up from inside of the house. And they had flood insurance, but they were denied by their insurance company because the sewage did not come in from outside. If it had come in from outside, then their insurance would have paid. So they had to turn to FEMA. Again, they were denied. I think they eventually got $20,000 for their $400,000 house that had to be completely rebuilt inside. And if it hadn't have been for our local churches and other organizations to help them, they probably would never have been able to rebuild their house. But they're back in it today. But it took months and months and months and months to get there. But I think having all those organizations together to support each other, and especially a one-stop shop for those who needed the help, was very beneficial.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Leary, from your testimony, it's clear that you experienced a lot of problems on the back end of your loan. Even once the shortfall ended and there was the funding, I think we can all agree that a couple of weeks is too long to wait for simple questions to be answered, and 8 months is too long to receive disbursements for your loan. So how did the long wait time impact your ability as a business to recover from Helene and plan for the future of your business?
Well, it put everything in limbo in the sense that we couldn't make firm plans. We thought that we were moving forward with the funding. We thought we'd been approved, actually, right up front, and then once once the money became available, we were asked to provide additional documentation. We were given additional clarifications, and it became very confusing, and that's why there were so many questions that I had for these for my case managers. And it slowed the whole process down. I mean, it essentially added a good 6 to 7 months to our rebuild time, and we are presently looking at receiving funding within the next couple of weeks and starting the building. But we were hoping to start back in March or April, and so it's just put that much of a delay on it. So for a seasonal business like Chimney Rock Village and a lot of Western North Carolina, we are seasonal. If you don't do it at the right time of year, then you're liable to not only miss this season but maybe the next season. So that's why, of course, for us, timing is very important. But it could have easily happened. This funding could have happened 6 months ago if things had moved a little faster.
It's very helpful. Thank you. Our second panel has the SBA's Associate Administrator for the Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. So I'd like to ask two things from each of you all while you're still here, given that you've got a unique opportunity to give feedback. First, what's your top line message to SBA about Hurricane Helene specifically? And second, if you could ask SBA to fix one thing, what would it be? Commissioner, we'll start with you. Now's your chance.
Yeah. Make the process simpler. I think we were speaking earlier in the room we were waiting in. If anytime you go to, Mr. Jackson brought up the sample of FAFSA. FAFSA used to be the hardest application to fill out ever made, but I helped my granddaughter this year, and it was just a matter of minutes, and it was all complete. And because they were able to pull from all of the information that was already there, why can't the process be as simple with other applications? But also, loans are great, but SBA needs to look at it from the small business perspective and realize that these people needed help recovering, and they were already paying off a mortgage. And if they lost the business, if the business floated down the river, then there's nothing left of that business to even have a loan for. And then they're stuck with that loan, and then they're facing the possibility of bankruptcy. So there needs to be a possibility of offering grants or forgivable loans or whatever it is, but there's got to be more to offer through the SBA than just the loan.
Thank you. Mr. O'Leary.
I would echo that, simplify the process, and by that I mean also cover all the basics up front. I mean, as I said, I was a commercial loan officer years ago, and when you're approved for a loan, then you're approved for the loan, and up front, and that's why I needed all these clarifications, because they approved me and then they started kind of changing the rules and saying, well, this doesn't cover that and it doesn't cover this, and it's like, well, I thought I was approved. So I think simplify the process, make sure you cover all those bases up front. And then the other thing I would just emphasize is the people that are dealing with the public, just make sure they're well trained. Just train them in how to answer these questions, and have a timeline for when you get back to people with an answer. It shouldn't be weeks to get an answer. It should be maybe a day or two, if not a few hours.
I think you mentioned there were 6 loan officers in 5 months or so.
Five different case managers, yeah, over a 6-month period. 5 case managers, yeah.
So that added to the complexity, and
of course,
and if you have,
I never knew who to contact exactly.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yes. So my advice would be customer forward relationships. And I emphasize the word relationships. And maybe this was a little bit unique to our disaster given the geographic region, but I would echo, or I would think that this would echo across the country as well. We've got some deep-rooted Appalachia culture in our region where trust is earned. This is not a community where you say, go call somebody on the phone, especially when phones didn't work. Don't call somebody on the phone. Don't log onto a website and wait for your time in the queue. This is about a person who's in a center that you form a relationship with. And once those relationships were able to be formed, we had some of the best interaction with FEMA, the SBA, and any federal agency for that matter. And then it all went away. I would consider the value of customer forward relationships and how that can lead to the information getting processed in a timely manner. I would echo the process. I think that's been well articulated. I would go back to my one suggestion being diversity in the products you offer. Forgivable loans. I don't think that anybody that's been represented by any of our communities has just come to this thing looking for a handout. They need a hand up into making sure that they have a fighting chance to move forward. And that means there's a measure of performance that I think that most businesses, most small businesses in our region are willing to understand that they have to abide by. It's not just take a check and go to the beach. It's here's what can help me get my doors open again. Forgivable loans, grants, that equals tax base. And it comes back to the customer side of this again. Taxpayers are customers too. And I think that if there were more tools that were available to help them get out of the gates, they are the first ones that want to be a part of the positive piece of recovery for all of our communities.
This has been great. Thank you all for being here today. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your testimony. We're going to take a quick recess to allow our first panel to get up and allow the table to be reset for the second panel.
All right, you've been listening into, for the last about 50 minutes now, that hearing that is being held in Hendersonville with Senator Ted Budd, hearing from local officials, local business leaders about the response to Hurricane Helene, what's still needed and what needs to change for the future. They are taking a quick break, so we're going to do the same as well. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Stick with us. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. Julie Kay here, 2:52 on the clock. I'm following a lot of local headlines recently, but going now to Washington, D.C., Janine Pirro is speaking about potentially upgraded charges for a 17-year-old accused of shooting an off-duty firefighter in D.C. with, I believe, the initial intent to rob. So let's take a listen and see what she's saying.
Superior Court. Now, this is a very sad commentary on what's gone on. As a result of the surge, we have seen a reduction in violent crime, but we are continuing to see innocent Washingtonians in a situation where they're being approached by young kids with illegal guns who have no concerns about their accountability. And it is a reminder of why the president has decided to put additional resources into making D.C. safe for the people who live, work, and visit here. Now, these out-of-control juveniles who think nothing of illegally possessing a weapon and holding up individuals are now going to find that they will be made accountable, that there will be consequences, and there will be no more coddling of young criminals. This is why we fight. This is why we prosecute, and this is why the president is making safety a priority in the district. Now, I'm going to call upon the ADIC in charge, the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI, Darren Cox. He is in charge of the FBI field office.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Darren Cox. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the Washington field office. First off, I'd like to thank you and your office for being so aggressive on charging violent criminals here in D.C. and making the streets safe. Also, to our partners, thank you for the partnership, our federal partners and the Metropolitan Police Department for being aggressive in apprehending the subject. FBI agents, along with federal partners and MPD, aggressively apprehended the subject, took him into custody, and also participated in a number of interviews.
Okay, thank you. And I'd also like to call upon Dave Hoagland, who is the president of IFF Local 36, who represents all the firefighters, both active and retired in D.C. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Judge Pirro. I just want to thank you for chasing down this incident that happened over the weekend to take care of firefighter G.K. He's a committed public servant who on and off duty serves the district and lives and resides in the district, and we appreciate your commitment to making sure that our responders are kept safe both on and off the job.
All right, thank you. All right, any questions?
Your plans to upgrade charges here? I know that was what was asked, and we charged with attempted robbery. But
Yeah, I have upgraded the charges. It is now armed robbery, and that's why I was so clear in describing. He handed over the phone and everything else that was in his hands. So that is a completed as opposed to an attempted, and it's an armed robbery, which under Title 16, we have authority over 16 and 17-year-olds who commit armed completed robberies. Now, what I think is important to note is that we need to lower the age. We need to make sure that we get a net of all of those violent individuals, young ones, who who feel nothing or no consequences when they get an illegal gun and decide to use it. So, but there are also additional charges, as I stated.
Can we upgrade this? Can you upgrade this to attempted murder? I think a lot of people are wondering that as well.
Well, the aggravated assault while armed is probably the most serious we could do. Attempted murder is not covered under Title 16. Murder is covered under Title 16. Armed robbery is covered under Title 16. Burg 1 and rape. Okay, those are the four.
The issue is also that it took a long time for him to get in contact with 911. He actually had to call his fellow firefighters to come help him. That's a continuing problem in the district that also creates issues in your office, I imagine. Has this office considered asking the president to reroute some of those National Guard and surge resources to helping with 911 and OUC?
Well, what I have done is I've spoken with Mayor Bowser, and we are analyzing this situation and the call, what time it came in, how long it took to get the response out, and we're very coordinated. And if we think that there is additional help that's needed, we will certainly ask for it. But right now we're working with the mayor, and she's been very responsive. And it looks right now like it was pretty good. What you've got is the victim who clearly made a phone call, then asked the neighbor to make a phone call. In the meantime, there was help coming out. So we're on it, but right now we're not ready to say anything beyond that.
Do you think you can get 5 years, or would this person be released from juvenile when they turn 21?
You are so smart. It's called the Youth Rehabilitation Act, also known as the YRA, which means that if you're under the age of 25 and you go to district court and there's a mandatory minimum of 5 years and you shoot someone with a gun, as someone did not that long ago on a bus, and you shoot him in the chest, which is very much like this. The judge decided, I'm going to give you YRA and I'm not going to give you the mandatory minimum. And that's why we have to change the law. That's why it has to be changed. Right now, the judge has that power, and we don't want that to be the case in D.C. We want them to be accountable. You shoot somebody, all right, you are in the midst of an armed robbery, a violent crime with an illegal gun. This guy's got a bullet in his chest. I don't think a judge should be able to say, I'm going to ignore the mandatory minimum.
Separately, on another case, this Ms. Ferrer, who the State Department official who embezzled over $650,000 in 12 months. I think the prosecution was looking for 18 months. Are you satisfied with that conviction and with that sentence?
Well, look, you know, in a case like this, you know, I only get involved with criticizing judges when I am exercised about the case. The judge issued a 12-month sentence and a 3-year supervised release, and the victim, the defendant in this case, has to pay $657,000 back. Now, what I love about this case, and you can do with the information whatever you want, is we have this person who admitted that she abused her signature authority over the State Department checking account by writing 60 checks over a 2-year period payable to herself. But then what she did is she went into QuickBooks real fast and changed the name of the payee. So when they looked at the QuickBooks, it looked perfectly fine. So the judge, realizing that she has a problem, which to me is not an excuse, okay, she's got a problem going to the casinos. So the judge says to her, I'm going to set a release condition. And the release condition is you do not go to the casinos, i.e., you're a gambler, okay? The same day she pled guilty, guess where she goes? She goes to the MGM National Harbor Casino. So I'm not real sure that this woman is going to follow the judge's instructions. So who knows when she might be called back for a resentence or a violation of probation. So hope springs eternal. Get it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Anything?
Mr. Hoagland, please,
Oh, Hoagland, go.
How he's doing tonight and how he's recovering and how relieved you are that he was able to get help from his fellow firefighters.
Yeah, I was at the hospital with him till late Saturday night, along with members of his company, Truck 7 and Engine 18. They were the same members who responded to help him, along with one of our medic units. So I think he's home recovering with his family. Everybody's very happy that he's safe and he's well. They actually left the bullet in him because they would have done more damage taking it out. But I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief that this wasn't worse.
Judge Pirro, DC crime statistics show an uptick in crime since the takeover ended, the 30 days. How confident are you that DC police have this?
Do we know that? Do we know that?
Heard it here first.
Okay. I don't know that that's the case, but what I can tell you is the president's crime surge in D.C. made an incredible difference. I mean, in terms of robberies, carjackings, violent crime, homicides down 53%. I think it's the best thing that's happened to this district. What does it tell you?
Well, that could be a conversation over coffee. I'm not the U.S. attorney here in D.C. My question is there an effect now that the surge is over?
I don't know yet. I haven't seen the numbers. I don't know if that's something that I can conclude. Do you think I can read that without my glasses?
While you read them, can I ask the FBI one?
Oh, wait a minute. It went down this week. Where'd you get your numbers? Stop it.
That's from the 15th.
This is...
From the 15th.
And today is?
The 22nd. We haven't gotten anything more recent.
Yeah. Last week it continued to go down. All right.
Can I just ask how you happened to be there Saturday night? Was this part of the extended cooperation, or were you there for a specific operation?
Sure, this is part of the surge on DC, and we have agents that are out every night working with federal and MPD partners, and we happened to be there, and we responded aggressively. Just like Director Patel has said, the FBI is working to crush violent crime, and we are crushing violent crime, and we have agents out on the street every night working to do that with our partners.
There are some reports that those agents out on the street at night are detracting from some of their previous work on both national security and white-collar criminal investigations. Any response to that?
I don't want to respond to that. Thank you.
Was there anything else we could say about the 17-year-old criminal background? Anything that you know?
It would be, I can't. I'm not allowed. So why are you asking? You know I can't. You were just hoping that I would.
Have you discussed your appeals with Mayor Bowser? Or do you know her opinion on the appeals you want to make to the Youth Rehabilitation Act?
Yes, and we have had great discussions with the mayor about the changes that we all need to make DC safe again. And and we continue to work with the mayor's office and with Leslie Appiah and her council. Look, we all want to make DC safe, and I think the more we work together, the more we can do it. That's why the president, that's why the Attorney General Bondi, that's why everyone is involved in this. And there is this continuing cooperative engagement by the feds in the district, which I think is important.
Judge, your office continues to lose prosecutors, and that's in addition to the 90 or so that you were down from the beginning, including from high-profile cases like the Jewish Capitol Museum shooting. I know you brought in resources, but your office is still continuing to bleed prosecutors. So what are you doing about that, and what effect is it having on not just high-profile cases, but everyday cases?
Well, first of all, if you know anybody who wants to work here, you should give me their resume. That's number one. But number two is, look, we continue to try to get the best people we can in the office. And it's not unusual for people to leave a prosecutor's office. They get their experience, and then they go out into the private sector, and they make a lot of money. And this is it's a very big and important office. And I'm not surprised that people would leave this office to go on to other things. They have families. They have kids that are growing that need college educations. It's not that unusual. And we continue to add prosecutors as we go forward. I don't see that as anything other than the normal course of events.
It's not an easy market in the private sector, especially in law firms right now.
Well, with good people it is. With good people it is. All right, everybody, thank you.
Of Halligan and EDDA, are you concerned at all that there's starting to be this
politicization? No, I am not.
Of U.S. Attorney's offices?
I am not worried about that at all. All I know is that this office will continue to fight the fight, and we will continue to work with all our partners, and we will be fair and just. Thank you.
All right, coming back to you live after this press conference in D.C. where Jeanine Pirro was discussing new charges against a 17-year-old suspect who's been arrested after shooting an off-duty firefighter. Got some more local headlines to cover after this. Of course, we're going to get back to weather, and I know that Senator Ted Budd, is still in Hendersonville having the second part of that hearing on Helene recovery. So stick with us. We'll get to a lot of that after this break. All right, Julie Kay here. Your time is 3:08. We've gotten to a lot of important stuff, both locally and nationally, but let's take another check of your forecast as we head into your work week.
Well, good Monday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. Are you ready for it? Today is officially the very first day of fall, and let me tell you, it is not going to feel like it. Not today, not tomorrow, even straight into Wednesday. We're looking at temperatures that'll be into the upper 80s to near 90 degrees, feeling hot and muggy, but hey, at least we have nice sunshine, right? We do need some rain, though. It's getting very, very dry across the Carolinas, and really the rain chances as we're starting out the work week will be very low, but by the end of our work week, Thursday and Friday, those rain chances, they actually go up. We'll take a look at that, plus the tropics are getting quite active. I hope you had a great weekend. It was beautiful, wasn't it? Especially yesterday. It was kind of hot. 87 degrees is where we topped off, and today we're forecasting 87 degrees again. You can see our day planner throughout the remainder of our Monday afternoon, holding steady into the 80s. If you want to do anything outside, it is going to be a warm one. Grab some water and get outside. It's beautiful. Take advantage of it while we have it. Even as we're picking up those kids after school, send them outside to play. It'd be a great day to do that. Also would be a great day to be out in the mountains. A little cooler at that as well. Banner Elk only 70 degrees there. 71 in Blowing Rock. And as we're looking at the foothills, mainly into the low to mid 80s, 83 in Hickory as well as Morganton. And then we're turning up that heat across the Charlotte metro area. 87 for the Queen City, 87 for Lincolnton and Shelby. As we head to the south, it's a similar setup from Lancaster to Chester, mainly right around those mid 80s. So hot today, getting hotter for Tuesday, and then Wednesday, are you ready for it? We could have another 90-degree day. We'll keep a close eye on that for you, but then temperatures start to drop as we finish out our work week. Friday, I think we'll have a mix of upper 70s and low 80s. That'll feel nice, plus we have some rain showers on the way as well. And then this weekend, right around where we should be for this time of the year. Now, our drought monitor is released every Thursday with updates, so our next update won't come out until Thursday. And because we have so much dry conditions, we have that heat and humidity, there's a good chance that our drought monitor may get a little worse. Now, counties shaded in yellow, you are abnormally dry, and then some parts of the Carolinas actually in a moderate drought right now. So what that means is that we need a little rain. If you're still trying to keep your garden or your grass alive and fresh and green, make sure you're watering it, because our rain chances over the next 3 days are rather slim. And then as we're heading through Thursday and Friday, 40 to 60% chance of rain. Now we're talking we could get some more of that rain moving in. Let's walk you through our futurecast, though, slowing things down throughout the rest of our day today. Pausing time. Here's about 4 o'clock. Again, good mix of sun and clouds in the mountain locations. We could get a few stray sprinkles. Not too concerned about it. Quiet conditions overnight. Waking up to our Tuesday, a beautiful start to the day as you're heading off to work and those kiddos off to school. And then again, that heat and humidity oftentimes provides fuel for a pop-up shower storm in the afternoon. And then as we're heading into Thursday and Friday, look at that. The rain chances really increase up and down the eastern seaboard. That would be very nice for us because, yes, we do need the rain, but the tropics, we're keeping a close eye on that as well. This is a Category 3 hurricane right now. Hurricane Gabrielle still moving north-northeast at about 10 miles an hour, continuing to curve away from the United States. Not too concerned about it. We're mainly concerned about this area shaded in orange, as it could be trending a little closer to the United States over the next 7 days, so stay close to our weather team. We will, of course, keep you up to date with the very latest. Here's that Jerry Hunt 7-day forecast. It's going to be a warm start to fall with upper 80s and low 90s on the way.
All right, that was our Majestic Storm with your work week forecast. Some more national headlines that we want to get to. The first White House press briefing since the murder of Charlie Kirk was held just a couple hours ago now, I believe. So we're going to take a listen into that. I know that she addresses Attorney General Pam Bondi, and also I believe that potential announcement from the Trump administration on breakthroughs on autism research. So let's take a listen and see what she has to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. Good to see all of you here. I want to start with a preview of President Trump's very busy schedule for the week. Later this afternoon, the president will be making a major announcement focused on the childhood autism epidemic, alongside his top health advisors who are working to make America healthy again. This will be a powerful display of how the entire Trump administration is committed to addressing root causes of chronic conditions and diseases, embracing full transparency in government, and championing gold standard science. Tonight, the president will depart to New York City ahead of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly. He will be joined in New York City by the First Lady. Tomorrow morning, President Trump will deliver a major speech touting the renewal of American strength around the world, his historic accomplishments in just 8 months, including the ending of 7 global wars and conflicts. The president will also touch upon how globalist institutions have significantly decayed the world order, and he will articulate his straightforward and constructive vision for the world. The president will also be hosting bilateral meetings with the UN Secretary General and the leaders of Ukraine, Argentina, and the European Union. The president will also later in the day hold a multilateral meeting with Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Turkey, Pakistan, Egypt, the UAE, and Jordan. After these important meetings, the president will attend a reception tomorrow night with more than 100 world leaders before returning to Washington, D.C. On Thursday here at the White House, President Trump will welcome President Erdogan of Turkey for a bilateral meeting. And on Friday, the president will travel to Long Island for the Ryder Cup golf match between the United States and Europe. This event is one of the greatest sporting events in the world, and it would not be taking place this year without President Trump's help. President Trump signed an executive order last week preventing a strike that would have crippled the New York City area ahead of the tournament, and at the request of the 5 labor unions who all represent workers on the Long Island Railroad. One of the greatest golfers in the world, Bryson DeChambeau, praised the president's critical intervention, saying, quote, "When the possibility of a strike threatened to disrupt transportation and attendance, President Trump stepped up and took the action needed to protect this world-class competition." Thanks to President Trump's decisive leadership, the Ryder Cup experience will be everything fans and the golf community deserve. Again, that's a quote from the great golfer Bryson DeChambeau. Now let's all hope the American Ryder Cup team can take home the trophy. In other news, positive economic data continues to pour in. Brand new polling shows that Americans' faith in the economy and the direction of the nation is back on track and shooting even higher. Home ownership is more affordable, with mortgage rates dropping to a 3-year low. For new home buyers, this represents a $250 decline in your monthly mortgage payment, or nearly $3,000 a year. And President Trump has made it very clear he wants to continue to see mortgage rates decline to a record low, just like they did in his first term. Thanks to President Trump's unleashing energy dominance, gas prices are dropping, and Americans are spending the smallest share of their disposable income on gasoline since 2005. Additionally, the annual cost to own and operate a new vehicle is down by nearly 6% over the last year. Americans are earning more and they are spending more than ever before. After inflation outpaced for 26 straight months under Joe Biden, real wages have increased nearly every month since President Trump took office, with wages for blue-collar workers rising at the fastest rate in 6 decades. Retail sales are also booming, up 5% over last year, and the stock market is booming, and Americans' retirement accounts continue to do well, with the Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ all hitting new record highs. In fact, the S&P 500 is up nearly 15%, and the NASDAQ is up more than 21% since Election Day. As part of President Trump's mission to restore America as the manufacturing superpower of the world, he has secured nearly $9 trillion in U.S. investment, nearly 9 times more than Biden attracted in his entire 4-year term, and we expect that number to be upwards of $15 trillion very soon. We're already seeing the initial economic benefits of these investments, with industrial production recently rising to an all-time high. President Trump built the greatest economy in the history of the world in his first term, and we are witnessing him do it all over again. Now, before I open it up to questions, I do want to speak on the heinous political assassination of Charlie Kirk. As President Trump powerfully stated yesterday, this assassination was an attack on everything that makes the United States of America the greatest country on earth. But that attack has completely failed. The heartwarming response from the overwhelming majority of the American people over the past 2 weeks is all of the proof that you need. The assassin who took Charlie's life can destroy flesh and blood, but he can never destroy the values that Charlie stood for. All across the country, millions of Americans have prayed, hosted vigils, attended church services, became politically engaged for the first time, and honored the legacy of Charlie and the ideals he died speaking for. The beautiful memorial service attended by President Trump and 100,000 great Americans in State Farm Stadium yesterday was just the latest example. And Erica Kirk's mercy was one of the greatest acts of grace this world has ever seen. May God continue to watch over Erica and their beautiful children. Unfortunately, there have been some jarring exceptions to this unity. This past Friday, 58 House Democrats voted no, and 38 voted present on a resolution that simply stated, condemning in the strongest possible terms the assassination of Charles James Kirk and all forms of political violence. There were no strings attached to this vote. This was a simple gesture of human decency to denounce political violence. I wish I could say that this was only a fringe group, but 96 votes is nearly half of the entire House Democrat caucus. And they didn't just vote against this basic resolution condemning political violence. A number of those same Democrats took to the House floor to smear Charlie Kirk's name. The man wasn't even buried yet, and Democrat members of Congress were denigrating his memory on the floor of the House of Representatives. This was truly a sad moment and a clear reflection of how radical the Democrat Party has become. Many Democrats in elective office have now been totally captured by a radical fringe of the far-left base who want to dehumanize every person they disagree with. We must continue to call this wickedness out. It's the only way that our nation can heal. For too long, past leaders have offered platitudes while political violence has been allowed to fester and harm innocent Americans. There has been coordinated campaigns dating back years, spearheaded by radical left-wing organizations centered on dehumanizing, intimidating, doxing, and even attacking Americans whom they disagree with. These groups have radicalized impressionable individuals to foment violence. An attempted transgender assassin traveled to Justice Brett Kavanaugh's family home with plans to end his life. An attempted assassin came within an inch of ending President Trump's life in Butler, Pennsylvania, and on the campaign trail, another attempted assassin tried to kill the president at his golf club in Florida. A left-wing assassin shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson right in the back in the heart of New York City. ICE agents are facing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults for simply doing their jobs. Violent radical left-wing mobs engaged in illegal behavior, targeted Jewish Americans, and shut down America's college campuses under the previous administration. Left-wing mobs burned down Tesla dealerships out of, quote, protest of Elon Musk and his policies. In May, a left-wing activist shouting "Free Palestine" murdered 2 innocent Israeli embassy staffers outside of the D.C. Jewish Museum here in Washington. These are just a few examples, prominent examples, of the growing left-wing political violence in our country. Enough is enough, and as President Trump has promised, he will directly address the dark sources funding and supporting this domestic terrorism to finally restore order in our country. The American people can expect further, very strong action on this very soon. Everyone, Republican, Democrat, everyone in between, we all deserve to live in a country where we do not have to fear for our lives simply for stating what we believe in. With that, I will take your question. In today's new media seat, we have Monica Page, who is the White House correspondent for Turning Point USA's news organization, on the front lines. Monica, thank you for being here. We're so sorry for the loss of Charlie. I know you work for him, you were very close to him, and we appreciate your being in the new media seat and also your commitment to covering the White House. You are here every day, just like the rest of everyone in this room, so why don't you kick us off today?
Thank you so much, Caroline. I don't think you realize how much it means to me to be here in this seat, especially on behalf of Turning Point USA and Frontlines. We greatly appreciate it. We also greatly appreciate the outpouring of support and just the really kind words that we heard yesterday at the memorial service. That means more to us than I don't think anybody ever knows. And even the global support that we're seeing for Charlie has been overwhelming, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you so much. I have 3 questions, if I may, on the horrific murder of Charlie Kirk. Government and local officials said that Antifa inscriptions were engraved in these bullet casings that killed Charlie Kirk. It appears to be a trend, especially after what we saw in the Annunciation Church shooting, Catholic Church shooting. Additionally, Stephen Miller recently commented on the rise in this kind of violence, saying there is a domestic terrorist movement growing in this country. The president is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. I'm wondering, what is the approach to holding these people accountable, just to ensure that violence like this just is eradicated moving forward?
Sure. Well, Antifa is going to be designated a domestic terrorist organization. The president intends to sign that executive order very soon as it's drafted, as soon as today, later this afternoon. And this is something the president campaigned on, because we have seen a rise in violence perpetuated by Antifa radical people across this country who subscribe to this group. And unfortunately, it's gone widely uncovered by many in the legacy media. It also went completely ignored by the previous administration. Not anymore. Not only, as you mentioned, were the bullet casings subscribed with Antifa mottos, if you will, in the heinous assassination of Charlie, but there have also been more examples than I could read off for you here in this briefing room today of violence from Antifa. I will just read a few. In July 2025, several members of an Antifa cell ambushed and opened fire on officers at an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas, shooting one officer in the neck. Also in July 2025, 3 Antifa members were charged with assaulting a police officer during a violent riot outside an ICE facility in Portland, which for weeks prior had been under siege from the local Antifa terror cell. In February 2024, a transgender Antifa terrorist detonated an explosive device outside of the office of the Republican Attorney General of Alabama. In July 2023, Antifa members linked to abortionist group Jane's Revenge firebombed pro-life facilities and vandalized churches. In January 2022, a suspected Antifa member was arrested for bringing a pipe bomb to a pro-Trump event. In January 2021, an Antifa supporter threatened to shoot police officers and Trump supporters outside of the Florida State Capitol building. Again, I could continue to list many more examples for those in the room who don't believe this is a serious threat to American safety and our national security, but this administration knows that it is. That's why the president will be signing this order. And we will also be, most importantly, looking at who is funding Antifa and who is funding these other violent left-wing groups that we've seen perpetuate so much crime and mayhem across our country.
Thank you. And Charlie Kirk died exercising his First Amendment right, willingly debating, conversing with everybody and anybody. That was what he did. So what message does this White House have now to all Americans who feel like they are too afraid to express their beliefs, their values, their morals in the wake of such horrific violence?
I think the president has answered this, and I will leave it to his response, Monica, where he so beautifully said, we have to keep fighting. We have to keep speaking up. We have to keep speaking our mind. I know that's what Charlie would want us to do, and we have a right to free speech in this country. The president supports it. It is protected by our beautiful Constitution, and Americans should not cower in fear. They should rise up in courage to continue speaking the truth.
And to end on a lighter note, Caroline, I'd love to know what your favorite memory of Charlie is.
Sure. Charlie was a great guy, and he was, of course, a very influential person in the conservative movement, in the MAGA movement. He was so helpful to the president during the campaign and to all of us who worked on that campaign, that historic campaign. I myself had many great memories going on Charlie's amazing podcast and his show. He was always willing to text people with words of encouragement. In fact, my last text exchange with him was the day before he died, and he was asking for my husband and I's address to send a children's book to our son. And I think that just speaks to the type of person that he was. And I know so many of us here at the White House are going to miss him very much.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Gabe.
Carolyn, thank you. Regarding the autism announcement,
sure.
Why now? Does the administration have new data that hasn't been published previously showing a possible link between acetaminophen and autism?
I know there's been many reports about what this announcement at 4 o'clock will be, Gabe. The president is very excited about this, so I don't want to scoop the president of the United States and our Secretary of Health and Human Services, but what I can assure you is that Robert F. Kennedy and the incredible health team that this president has put together are really viewing things in a much different lens, and they are paying attention to studies and the gold standard of science and research that many in this city for far too long have turned a blind eye to. So I think Americans are going to be enlightened and proud of what they hear later this afternoon, but I won't get ahead of the president on exactly what that announcement entails.
On a different topic, going back to the president's social media post from over the weekend regarding the DOJ and his seeming frustration that they hadn't taken action quickly enough. I want to point to something that the president said during his inaugural address. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. We will not allow that to happen. Is the president going back on his promise?
No. In fact, the president is fulfilling his promise to restore a Department of Justice that demands accountability. And it is not weaponizing the Department of Justice to demand accountability for those who weaponized the Department of Justice. And nobody knows what that looks like more than President Trump. We are not going to tolerate gaslighting from anyone in the media or from anyone on the other side who is trying to say that it's the president who is weaponizing the DOJ. It was Joe Biden and his attorney general who weaponized the DOJ. Joe Biden used this sacred American institution to go after his political opponent in the middle of an election year. And you look at people like Adam Schiff and like James Comey and like Letitia James, who the president is rightfully frustrated. He wants accountability for these corrupt fraudsters who abused their power, who abused their oath of office to target the former president and then candidate for the highest office in the land. And I think the president is reaffirmed in those frustrations and his hope for accountability by the millions and millions of people who reelected him to this office with a mandate to demand accountability. And the president has not been shy about this, Gabe. In fact, when he traveled to the Department of Justice earlier this year, all of you were there to cover it, he said, quote, "I demand a full and complete accountability for wrongs and abuses that have occurred. The American people gave a mandate to investigate and root the corruption out of our system," and that's what the president wants to see done.
Carolyn.
Ed.
On the autism issue again, there are reams of scientific research that suggests there's no clear link between autism and acetaminophen usage. You're suggesting today they may have new information on this. A lot of it, and this entire debate, has the potential to confuse women, especially pregnant women, about what to do. What do you say to those that say what you're doing today potentially just introduces more confusion into the debate?
I think women for many years, in fact for decades, Ed, have been confused by the rapid increase in autism in this country, in the childhood epidemic, that is chronic epidemic, disease epidemic that is plaguing America's youth. Women are confused about that and they want answers to that. And that's exactly what this administration is focused on finding. And before you jump to conclusions based on reports that the White House has not even confirmed, I would encourage everyone in this room to go into the 4 o'clock announcement with some critical thinking skills and with some open ears to actually listen to what the president and his team of outsiders have to say about this. And there will be a number of things that will be announced and discussed. And I think, I know as a mother myself, I speak, I believe, for many mothers across the country who really want answers to what is happening to our nation's children. So again, I won't get ahead of the president, but I think everyone in this
room needs to tone down the judgment before you even hear what people are going to say. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. So too on the Holman investigation, I mean, can you just speak to, did the president ask the Justice Department to close the case, and does Holman have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Holman never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Holman did absolutely nothing wrong, and even the president's Department of Justice, even Kash Patel's FBI, looked into this just to make sure. They had a number of different prosecutors and FBI agents who looked into this. They found zero evidence of illegal activity or criminal wrongdoing. In the White House and the president stand by Tom Holman 100% because he did absolutely nothing wrong, and he is a brave public servant who has done a phenomenal job in helping the president shut down the border. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions on far-left violence.
Sure.
The first one, the president said yesterday that the bullet hit Charlie, but it was aimed at every one of us. Do you and your colleagues have a heightened sense of fear following this shooting and this far-left violence we're seeing across the country?
I certainly think there's a heightened sense of awareness by conservatives across the country, by all of us here at the White House. Again, as I said to Monica, many of us were personal friends with Charlie and had involvement with Turning Point before we came and served our government in this way. So certainly it's a very shocking incident, and I think, you know, it's very unfortunate that those of us who work in this movement have to think about violence just for speaking our minds and for supporting President Trump.
And as a follow-up on that, I asked the president last night on Air Force One about this pattern of transgender violence we're seeing. You know, Charlie's killer lived with his boyfriend who identifies as transgender, and then we had the Annunciation shooting, the Covenant shooting, all of these incidents. The president said that we're looking into transgender violence. Does that mean the FBI is looking into it? And can you give any more clarity on how the administration is viewing this uptick in specifically transgender violence?
It's definitely something worth looking into, and I think anyone who denies that at this point is being willfully ignorant. And the administration is taking it seriously, all causes of violence, and why these people would be driven to such evil and such hatred. And there's probably many answers to that question, but the administration is really focused on all of them. For individual investigations and cases, of course, the FBI and the Department of Justice are leading those. But as for this overall violence and domestic terrorism that we're seeing, the White House and the president's policy team will be leading the charge, and that really begins with designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. And I can assure you there will be additional actions to come. Sure, in the pink.
Thanks, Caroline. Liz Landers with PBS NewsHour. I just wanted to follow up quickly on something that the president had said yesterday. So we heard from Erica Kirk. She said she forgives the man who shot and killed her husband. And then right after that, we heard from the president who said, I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them. How does that square with bringing down the temperature of political violence in this country? And then, if I could, I had a follow-up on Venezuela, too.
Look, the president is authentically himself. I think that's why millions of Americans across the country love him and support him, including Erica Kirk, who you saw so beautifully was on stage with the president in an unthinkable moment, in the midst of an unthinkable tragedy, and was leaning on the president for support during that time. And he was there to give it to her, as well as the vice president and many other top-ranking cabinet officials. Kayla.
Thanks, Caroline. On TikTok, the deal, how much is the deal? And if you can't give an exact number to how much the deal is, when can we expect to learn how much the deal is being valued at? And then separately, who are the members involved in the deal? Like, can you share any more details there?
So I don't have a specific number for you, nor am I going to confirm the specific individuals and entities in the deal, Kayla, but I do have several details I'm happy to run through for all of you, and the president will be signing the deal, the official deal, later this week at some point. Under the terms of this deal, TikTok will be owned by a majority of American investors and controlled by a board of directors with extensive national security and cybersecurity credentials. In partnership with the U.S. government, Oracle will serve as TikTok's trusted
trusted security provider, and they will independently monitor the safety and data security of all U.S. user data on TikTok's platform. Americans' data will be stored securely in the United States without access from China. All U.S. user data will be stored on servers operated by Oracle in the United States, protected from surveillance or interference by foreign adversaries. And the algorithm, I know this is a question many of you have had, will be secured, retrained, and operated in the United States outside of ByteDance's control. And TikTok will remain globally interoperable, meaning TikTok users in the U.S. will be able to see videos posted by users in other countries and vice versa. While I don't have a number on the specific deal, we do expect that thanks to the president's leadership and the securement of this historic deal, businesses using TikTok will generate as much as $178 billion in economic activity within the U.S. over the next 4 years. So this is great news, not just for the millions of American youth who use TikTok. Their data will be safe and secure with this new deal. They'll continue to use this very fun app, but it's also great news for all of the small business owners who have really been able to make a living off of the use of TikTok as well.
And if I could just get one more as it relates to China, on crop prices with farmers, as there's still no official trade deal with China, farmers are getting a little bit antsy navigating prices being weak and not strong. How is the administration thinking about farmers right now? Is there anything we can expect to see from the administration on sort of bailing farmers out should prices continue to not work in their favor?
Well, the administration is completely understands the anxiety of farmers. We're very much aware of this issue. It has been a part of our discussions, the trade team's discussions with their Chinese counterparts. As for any specific actions, I don't have any news on that for you today, but I can fully assure you the entire National Economic Council in this building, as well as our Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, have been talking with the trade team about this. There's been many meetings on this, and they are on the ball, but I don't have anything specific for you today. Sure, Selena.
Thanks, Caroline. But the case against Letitia James was extensively investigated for 5 months, and President Trump's handpicked Attorney General Eric Siebert could not find any evidence that he committed a crime. So is the president saying here it doesn't matter if there's a crime, he just wants his political enemies to be charged?
Well, let me just walk you through Letitia James. Letitia James completely abused her oath of office. Letitia James was actively and openly engaged in lawfare. You talk about weaponizing the Department of Justice. What was Letitia James's campaign slogan? It was prosecute Donald Trump. She was saying she was going to prosecute Donald Trump before she even knew if Donald Trump committed a crime, which of course we did not. Those are not the words of a serious prosecutor. Those are the words of a corrupt politician who is abusing their power. She actively campaigned on that. She also led the witch hunt, the financial fraud investigation against President Trump and the Trump Organization, and an appeals court tossed that case out, a $500 million civil fraud penalty in August, which was another win for the president, and exonerated him of this witch hunt and showed that this is an individual who is corrupt and abused her oath of office. And we also have evidence of her mortgage fraud. An April report from a white-collar fraud investigator found that there was documented evidence that James engaged in a consistent pattern of financial and property disclosures that raise serious legal questions.
But why won't the president accept the conclusions of his Justice Department to not bring charges against Letitia James? In fact, you had Bondi and Blanche top DOJ leadership who were against ousting Eric Siebert, who again was picked by President Trump.
I just answered that question for you, and the president has every right to express how he feels about these people who literally campaigned on trying to put him in jail, who literally tried to ruin his life and ruin his businesses, and he wants to see accountability for those who abuse their office and abuse their power. And Letitia James absolutely did that, whether you want to admit it or not.
Is that not retribution, though?
Jeff, it's accountability.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 foreign policy questions. President Putin has offered President Trump a 1-year extension of the most recent treaty limiting nuclear weapons. Does the White House have a reaction to that? Does the president want to accept that offer? And then one separate issue, just generally, what is the president's response or reaction to the number of countries this week who are planning to or have recognized a Palestinian state?
Two great questions, Jeff. To your first question about Russia, the president is aware of this offer extended by President Putin, and I'll let him comment on it later. I think it sounds pretty good, but he wants to make some comments on that himself, and I will let him do that. As for all of these Western nations that are recognizing a Palestinian state, the president has been very clear. He disagrees with this decision. He spoke about that in the UK, standing right next to his friend, Prime Minister Starmer, and he feels this does not do anything to release the hostages, which is the primary goal right now in Gaza, does nothing to end this conflict and bring this.
All right, you've been listening into the White House press briefing from earlier today, where Caroline Leavitt addresses questions specifically about Charlie Kirk, that assassination, and her last memories with him. Now, we want to come back out, though, because we've got some breaking news that really has made a lot of headlines. Jimmy Kimmel will be returning to air tomorrow night. ABC and Disney announced that in a statement today. I'm going to read that. It says, last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. That's from a Walt Disney Company representative. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. They go on to say they spent the last few days having those conversations with Jimmy and ultimately decided to put him back on the air as of tomorrow night. This comes after, even just earlier today, protests outside Jimmy Kimmel's studio asking the company to bring him back on the air. So definitely a big development to a story we've been following pretty extensively over the last week or so. Will be very interesting to see what that first episode back looks like and what the response from the Trump administration and the FCC chair is following this. We'll keep following this after the break. Right now your time is 3:43. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News. It is 3:45 on the dot. We just brought you some breaking news that Jimmy Kimmel will be back on ABC tomorrow night. This comes after he was indefinitely suspended last week after comments he made about Charlie Kirk following that assassination. Now, there's been a big back and forth between Jimmy Kimmel and the network and the FCC because this came after political pressure from the FCC's political chair and President Donald Trump insinuating that maybe some of these companies should have their licenses revoked if they speak out about things like this. So there was a rally earlier today outside of Jimmy Kimmel's studio in Los Angeles before this decision was announced to bring him back on the air. Let's take a listen in.
As the council member for the 13th District here in Los Angeles, and I'm proud to represent Hollywood, the foundation of our district, internationally known, and it's a birthplace of artists, workers, creatives, and so much more. And we're not only just fighting for our democracy and our right to free speech, but we are here to stand with our siblings from the labor movement that are their 200 jobs hang in the balance thanks to this blatant government censorship. Because we know that when the government can control where people work and what they say, there is nothing that they can't do, and we will not allow it. Weak men will try to silence us because they know that they will never have as much power as the people. It is the people that have the power, and especially here in the City of Angels. Amen. In the City of Angels, we have worked really hard to uplift workers, immigrants, and support the Hollywood industry. And we will not allow ourselves to be steamrolled by this weak person in the White House. Because I'm sure everyone here agrees, LA is a union town, and we will flex our worker power to make sure we fight for everyone's free speech. Because when we come together, workers, artists, neighbors, our collective power is stronger than their fear, and together we will fight, because when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to bring up the President of the Writers Guild of America, Meredith Stein.
Good morning. My name is Meredith Stein. I'm a television writer and president of the Writers Guild of America West. First, thank you to Representative Laura Friedman for inviting writers here today. Thank you, writers, for showing up. You always do. As well as Representatives Liu, Chu, Barragan, Cisneros, and Sherman for taking a stand on this vital issue. I am here on behalf of the 12,000 union members who write Hollywood TV shows and movies to express our opposition and outrage at Disney and ABC for suspending Jimmy Kimmel Live. This cowardice has not only put the livelihoods of 20 writers, their crew members, and performers in limbo, it has put our industry and our democracy in danger. This is about the First Amendment, not just Hollywood. Our democracy depends, more than anything else, on our rights to speak freely, without retaliation from the government, especially when that speech challenges those in power. Yet this president and his administration seek to silence those who criticize, satirize, or speak truth to those in power. FCC Chair Brendan Carr and President Trump have made open threats to censor creatives. In fact, explicitly naming 2 more WGA members who they've targeted, Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon. This is an authoritarian, illegal overreach that we all must unite to oppose. Artists are already very concerned about our consolidated media ecosystem, the small and shrinking number of gatekeepers who control what Americans watch on TV. And these conglomerates are now being coerced into censoring us all by an administration that demands submission and obedience from what should be a free and independent media. The leadership of the Writers Guild of America calls upon the leadership of Disney and ABC, Bob Iger, Dana Walden, to join us in our unity against censorship. Use your power and partner with us to reject authoritarianism. Be courageous and protect your writers, your shows, your freedoms. Stand up to this administration and bring back Jimmy Kimmel Live. Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. And now representing the American Federation of Musicians, President Stephanie O'Keefe.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephanie O'Keefe, and I serve as the president of American Federation of Musicians Local 47 here in Los Angeles. I am so proud to stand before you with my fellow union leaders and together with such tremendous champions for working musicians. Representatives Friedman, Chu, Berrigan, Sherman, Liu, and Cisneros, thank you for your leadership and for always fighting on behalf of all artists and arts workers. Among the many talented members of AFM Local 47 are the incredible musicians who make up Cleto and the Cletones and the many other musicians who appear on Jimmy Kimmel Live on a regular basis. We need music now more than ever. Musicians inspire. They lift our spirits. They make us sing, dance, laugh, and cry. But there will be less music on ABC tonight for one simple reason. Instead of working in the public interest, the FCC serves only one person, Donald Trump. We must exercise our First Amendment rights by speaking directly to our government and the corporate entities that allowed this violation of the First Amendment to happen. My grandparents came to this country. You'll never drown the voices in my family out. My grandparents came to this country because of the promises of freedom of speech and expression. It is my honor to continue to fight alongside each one of you to preserve their dream. We must put an end to the corporate consolidation on television and radio that threatens our ability to make a living. We must stop the violation of rights in Los Angeles and across the country. And together, I know we can defeat those who wish to silence us. Thank you.
Now representing the Directors Guild, we have National Executive Director Russell Hollander.
Hi, I'm Todd Holland. I'm First Vice President of the Directors Guild. Russ was unable to be here today. I want to thank Representative Friedman for convening us today, and thank Representatives Berrigan, Chu, Cisneros, Liu, and Sherman for being here in support of all our members. Thank you. The DJ was founded 90 years ago to ensure that directors could work and create protected from outside interference. While our membership has grown and the work we cover has become broader over time, that founding principle has remained at the heart of who we are. The suspension of Jimmy Kimmel is just one of a growing and alarming list of examples of companies capitulating to government pressure to censor creative expression and suppress speech that is critical of the current administration. This trend is dangerous, it is harmful, it is wrong. The suspension happened because the government was upset with a single sentence in a talk show monologue, and their reaction put hundreds of hardworking union members out of work. And this kind of action has a chilling effect. How can any artist, a director, writer, actor, songwriter create art or entertainment while under threat that anything they create might offend someone in the administration? But of course, that's the point of oppression. But this is not just about the government. When one of the most powerful global media corporations capitulates to government-led censorship, we should all fear for the future of our industry and our country. Every studio needs to stand up and protect their workers and the art and entertainment we create for them. We know there's a cost. But this is a fight for our founding American principle. This fight is bigger than any one company, union, show, or talk show host. It cuts across all of the areas in which every one of our union members work. This is about the foundation of our industry and our nation. Hollywood has the power to inspire and to lead, and history is rife with examples of what happens when appeasement for the sake of profit is chosen over principle. We cannot make that mistake again. Thank you.
Well said. And now representing thousands of crew members all across the country, Tom Davis representing IATSE.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tom Davis. I'm president of the California IATSE Council, and Vice President of the International IATSC Emeritus. I'm here to speak about the 100 members of the IATSC who find themselves thrown out of work for no fault of their own. I'm here to speak out against the abuse that has impacted the lives of the crew members who have now lost their jobs because Disney bowed to the pressures of government censorship. Disney cowered and bent to Nexstar, who is seeking approval for additional accusations with the FCC, and said it would not air the Jimmy Kimmel Show. This brings additional questions. Who contacted who first? Did Brendan Carr call? We don't know. Or did Nexstar just figure out that it would be bad for business to allow Kimmel to continue? For almost 100 of these employees, though, it really doesn't matter. All the camera crew knows is that they are now unemployed. For the grips, the makeup artists, hairstylists, lighting technicians, editors, property persons, art department and wardrobe workers, as well as many more, they are now forced to grapple with the reality that they have been caught up in the made-up culture wars and have nothing of their own making. On behalf of the workers, we demand that Disney do the right, noble and courageous thing, bring Jimmy Kimmel back now. To Nexstar, we urge you to focus on your business and not others' politics. In short, do what is right for these hardworking Americans and bring them back to work. Thank you.
And our last speaker this morning, before we turn to questions, is someone who literally put their life on the line to defend the United States Constitution, Air Force veteran Shannon Corbeil.
Good morning, my name is Shannon Corbeil, and I served as an intelligence officer in the United States Air Force. I was stationed in South Korea and at the National Security Agency with mission sets that included defense from countries like North Korea, China, and Russia, countries with frighteningly different governments than our own. Since 1973, with the end of the draft, our military service members volunteer for duty. But whether officer or enlisted, we must, every single one of us, swear an oath not to